Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Literally Me podcast. Today we have the special Barbenheimer episode. We're going to talk about both Barbie and Oppenheimer, which came out just a couple of days ago, and we both had a chance to watch these amazing films, and what this episode is gonna be all about. We're not gonna talk about anything else, just those two banger films.
Get right into it. And I got a little. We're using a new platform as well, so they give us little sound effects and applause. Can you hear that, or is it just on my end?
I can't hear any applause, so it might just be.
Then I just look like a dumbass there. There were people cheering when we started the episode.
Maybe I'll hear it when I edit it, and I'll have your.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, that would be interesting to figure out, because before that we recorded on Zoom and then it just kicked us out after 40 minutes, so we had to stitch episodes together and make breaks, but now we can just
Yeah, here at Literally Me, we are very anti-Zoom, and we want them to know that.
Yep. They ruined the last couple of episodes with their...
They kind of have, yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep.
we have good things to talk about today, though,
Hell
with
yeah.
probably the most anticipated film weekend that I can remember, probably in my lifetime.
Hell yeah, and I mean, this was a very special day because the movies already made so much money and my theaters were packed.
Oh,
Was it
yeah,
the same for you?
Same.
Hell yeah, so people are going, and there's no excuse. Like, I think people are just bored because the last couple of weeks there were some movies that bombed, that flopped really hard, and people said, oh, no one's interested in going to the cinema anymore, but we can see that people are interested in good films.
100%. And it shows how good the marketing of this was as well. Like, I don't think either Barbie, and we could get into this later, but I think the fact that they did go out on the same weekend literally helped raise both of them higher in terms
100%.
of sales
Help
and whatnot.
both films. And it's not what I like about it. It wasn't a Barbie versus Oppenheimer. It was Barbie and Oppenheimer. People weren't comparing them,
Exactly.
being like, "Oh, I'm just gonna see this one." People are like, "Oh, I want to see both," and that's just
exactly. It was a cool double feature thing that they were able to do.
Yeah, man.
Well, I'm curious now because everyone has their own experience, and we should get right into it, like we said. But what was your Barbenheimer movie-going experience? Which one did you pick first? Which one did you see? How far? Same day? What was your process?
So I did manage to watch both on the same day because in a previous episode I mentioned that I've never watched two movies in the cinema on the same day. And that was a dream of mine. I always wanted to do that. So what better day to pick than this one?
Yeah, it's meant for you.
Very fortunate. The theater I always go to, they opened sooner than they usually would, because normally they don't open before I think 5 or 6 p.m. But they open at I think 1 p.m. already, so people can do the double feature, so they have enough time.
Is that just during the week, or at all times they always open? You said at 5 or 6 p.m.?
I think it's every day. They usually only open at night because people only go at night. Sometimes they're open sooner, but for this one specifically, they opened a lot sooner.
Interesting.
And that was very cool. So I did manage to finally watch two movies on the same day in the cinema. And that was very great. So I picked Barbie first. We watched Barbie at around 2 p.m. And then we had, I think, 3 hours before Oppenheimer. So the theater is in a mall, but it's in Switzerland, so it's very expensive. And we had enough time to just go to a different mall in Germany, and then get some lunch in, go back, and then watch Oppenheimer. So that was my schedule.
Heck yeah.
What about you?
I also saw Barbie first. And it was kind of upsetting first because I saw Barbie on Thursday evening when it came out, like a 7 o'clock or 7:30 screening, and then I couldn't go see Oppenheimer until Sunday, which I was so bummed. 'Cause I'm like, I want to see them both right away, like ASAP. But I had to wait. Just friends were busy or working or whatever, so we had to wait until Sunday. But it was pretty cool getting to see that. Well, it was super packed on Thursday evening. It was equally packed on Sunday afternoon / evening when I went again. Like, it really showed the entire weekend was just completely like just packed with people, and it was a pretty cool thing to see. But yeah, I did Barbie first. Had a few days to decompress and prepare myself for Oppenheimer. And yeah, it's only been about 12 hours actually since I left the theater for Oppenheimer.
I just wanted to say, I don't think you got enough time to fully process Oppenheimer.
I know. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I literally just saw it in my dreams all night.
Same for me. Like, I saw it on Thursday, but both these films are just in my head constantly still. So I don't think
now,
it's gonna.
In hindsight, after seeing both, are you happy you saw Barbie first and then Oppenheimer, or do you wish you would have done it the other way around?
Nope. I'm very happy because people told me. There were a couple of people who did it the other way around, and they said, "Oh, this is the way to go." Like, Oppenheimer first and then Barbie. But I'm glad I watched it the other way around, because now everyone told me, "Oh, you did the right thing." Because, after seeing Oppenheimer, I don't think you want to do anything except for going home and just being depressed and sad.
Exactly. Well,
which Barbie could help you to cheer up your mood, but I'm glad.
And I think that's what everyone was saying too, because they're like, it's going to be so depressing seeing Oppenheimer that you'll need a pick-me-up afterwards.
Yeah.
But also, I kind of like the fact that I saw Oppenheimer second, because I mean, I think either way it would have been a movie that would have kind of like stayed in my mind and I would continue to think about. But I think the fact that there isn't that like Barbie screening to sort of wash me and decompress me, now Oppenheimer's going to be even just more fresh and more intense in my mind, I think, when I think about it.
Absolutely.
But it's really crazy. Both films, so I guess some just behind the scenes stuff, or just the box office stuff before we get into the actual movie. So far, Barbie's done $337 million in the first weekend worldwide.
300?
Worldwide.
So the budget was like what, 150?
Yeah, it says the budget was between 128 and 145.
And marketing was like 120, 150, I heard.
So they probably just broke even. Like, with that 3-something, they probably just broke even.
In 3 days, that is impressive.
Yeah. And then Oppenheimer, $100 million budget with $174.2 million box office, worldwide box office. And I was reading something, I think that one also has to do like almost $400 million in order to be profitable as well.
Won't be a problem. I just feel bad for Mission Impossible. They picked the worst.
I was thinking about that earlier today, because I was super hype on checking it out. I even rewatched the first Mission Impossible after our last episode, and I was planning on going through, but then already my hype for Barbie and especially Oppenheimer came in, so I started watching some Nolan shit, some other like kind of adjacent shit instead, and I completely forgot. Now I probably won't go back, and I probably won't even go see it in theaters now, if I'm just being real.
It had a 63% drop off.
So really? Did it come out the 14th then? Like exactly the week prior?
Yeah, I think a couple of days before that. They wanted people to give people more time to watch it in IMAX, because now every IMAX is just playing Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Which has Tom Cruise furious, and yeah.
I mean, I would be too, I guess, but also you gotta understand the lay of the land and what's going on, and the world does not revolve around Tom, unfortunately.
Yeah, they either should have make it come out even sooner, or just waited maybe a month or two, but it's
tough. It's how, and I'm curious to know. I'm going to look that up now. I'm curious to know how how that one did in comparison. That's Dead Reckoning Part One,
That Reckoning
correct?
Part One, yeah.
I mean, it's
But
done.
it's like
Jesus, his
there's random.
budget was huge,
Yeah.
almost $300 million budget.
How much did it make so far?
370 million. It's made box office.
Okay. Well, that's not too bad. They could.
It's not too bad, but they're definitely going to be in the red for a while.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is a huge budget. Wow.
Mhm. What I wanted to say, I
Um,
hope it's not too loud because there's thunder outside. Right now, I have my window open, so
oh
you
no,
can.
I don't hear it at all.
Okay. I might just close
Uh,
it just in case.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, that is absolutely insane. And I know I'm curious to know, has Tom Cruise come out um and said anything about this actually? Or is he actually like out here like upset? I'm sure he is, but has he like vocalized that to like the public?
Not to the public. He even said he's excited for both those films, and he just
Uh-huh.
loves that two films are coming out, and people can check out. But there was a report that he is very pissed, and he tried to get like a couple IMAX theaters to play his movie even longer.
Hmm.
But to the public, he just said praise to both films,
Yeah.
which
Because
it's not.
he's a stand up guy, yeah, and it's no one's fault. If anything, it's the studios who made Mission
Yep.
Impossible. It's their fault for choosing this time to put it out.
Yeah.
Especially, I think seeing all the hype around Barbenheimer, I feel
Hmm.
like you gotta just, as a studio, kind of be like, look, we're just gonna have to swallow this L and just change the release date, like literally push it to like October. Who is it hurting by pushing it back like 2-3 months?
Plus, you can't compete with Barbenheimer. There's just no way. There's another movie they cloned Tyrone, which came out on Netflix
Yes,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
day after, completely swallowed. No one's talking about, which is a shame. I watched it; it was great, but
Yeah.
you
Was
can't.
that was that shot on film? Because I saw it pop up on Netflix, and all the stills looked real gritty.
I think I sent you the trailer because I
Yeah.
just thought
Okay.
mm,
Because it
it
looks super
looked good.
familiar, and I remember we had talked about it, but I'm like, this looks, yeah, I gotta check
Yeah.
that one out. But yeah, it is a shame because, like, what do you think would be like the last film that's come?
Where I can't hear you anymore.
Oh wait, what just happened?
I couldn't hear you anymore.
Oh, it just cut out for a sec. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, I think I maybe just had a glitch in my Wi-Fi or something
Okay.
over here on my end. Okay. Well, at least we have
Mhm.
the audio track, so we can we can cut
Yep.
that out now. Okay, I'm just gonna re-ask that question, so we'll cut all this out.
Mhm.
What do you think like was the last film that had like this big of like a marketing like aura behind it, like before this? Because
Interesting question.
I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is honestly like that Bird Box movie with Sandra Bullock, where
Hmm.
everyone was talking about it because it became a meme.
Yeah. I think Infinity War and Endgame probably. Those were like a big event, but I'm actually not sure. I
It
can't
was a
remember.
huge event because like doesn't event like the last Avengers have like one of the highest box office like like behind like Avatar and Titanic like up there
I think Avatar and Endgame are always like every
back
time
and
one of
forth.
the films re-releases the other
Okay,
one. Yeah.
okay, okay. Yeah, because those were huge, but I feel like they didn't even Avatar, something that was huge. I feel like the marketing was not even like this is like it just
Next
felt
level.
different. Like
Yep.
yeah, which it's funny that Avatar would absolutely blow both of these out of the box office.
Hmm.
Which I mean, only time will tell. Like this is truck, especially Barbie is fucking trucking.
Hmm.
Like already at almost 400 million, and it's been out for 4 days.
I think it's the second fastest after Endgame. I could be wrong here, but I read
I
something
believe
like
that.
that. So it's gonna make a shit ton of money.
Yeah. Um, and rightfully so. And it's a lot of people. It's been funny seeing on Instagram like the people when they put up the comparison between the two box offices. And
Hmm.
there's all these just film bros in the comments who are like, it's because Barbie is for girls and
Yep.
like it's commercial and Oppenheimer isn't commercial. It's like first off, Oppenheimer's very commercial. Like Warner Brothers made that shit. Like they had a
Hmm.
200 million, it's commercial, dude.
Yep.
Like that's a commercial ass movie. Um but like the thing to keep in mind is Barbie has almost twice as many screenings because it's half as long.
That's true. That's one thing people need to keep in mind because you can
Yeah.
watch Barbie a lot faster, so you can have more screenings.
Yeah.
Whereas
Which is
Oppenheimer, you're in there for a
exactly,
while.
which is why a lot of studios don't like movies that are 3 hours or almost at it because it cuts down the amount of screens that you can put it on each
Mhm.
day,
Yep.
you know? Um, but yeah, and also on top of that, you got to think that you're not taking kids to Oppenheimer either. Like you can take the whole family to Barbie.
Hmm. That's true. And people, I don't know about your screening, but in my screening, there were a bunch of moms who brought their kids, their daughters,
Oh
their
yeah.
sons.
For mine, well, let's talk about that.
Hmm.
Let's talk about your Barbie screening.
Hmm.
Was it completely sold out in there? Was it normal screening? Was it Dolby? Did they have Barbie in IMAX? Like, what was the? How were you watching it, and what was your screening room like?
Well, unfortunately, there's no IMAX where I live, so I couldn't even watch Oppenheimer in IMAX,
Oh,
which is
really?
a shame. Yeah. But Barbie, it was like I said, it was at 2 p.m. So normally at 2 p.m. you don't have a lot of people.
Yeah.
But the room was pretty. It wasn't like completely full,
Hmm.
but I think it was like 60%, which for 2 p.m.
That's pretty
over
good
here, that's great.
on a Thursday as well,
On a
right?
Thursday,
Yeah.
yeah, that was great, and a lot of people. We didn't have too many people because me and my girlfriend, I wore a pink Kennedy shirt to it, and my
Hmm.
girlfriend also wore some pink. And there were a couple people who did dress up, even in like
Yeah.
Barbie dresses and had pink. There was even a dad who went with his daughters and he had a pink shirt, which was great.
Yeah.
I love that. But yeah, a lot of moms, and there were a lot of people. You could tell it was a very, very fun crowd. People had
Yeah.
fun, people made it this event, and we even saw a couple people in the Oppenheimer screening. So
Really?
we weren't the only ones doing the double feature over here, which was
That's
great.
awesome.
Yeah. What about your screening?
Yeah, so I went Thursday, like I said, I think it was 7 or 7:30.
Hmm.
And we saw it in Dolby
Hmm.
actually. Which was really cool. And have you been in one of those Dolby cinema screenings
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
where essentially it's just the sound is like all like on point. Like it
Hmm.
is just, and it's coming from like every angle. Like literally, you hear it like behind your ears, up
Hmm.
there. Like it's very surround in that way, like in the truest way.
Hmm.
Um, but then also the seats and stuff like shake,
Oh, we
or
have those. I've
react.
never been.
Yeah, like they react as well, and which I'll get into. I was expecting that for Oppenheimer.
Hmm.
IMAX doesn't even have that. Um, but anyway, we go in there. We
Hmm.
saw it in Dolby, which was really really awesome because the sound is like so big and there's so much music in Barbie too that it was like it made it even more immersive and especially being like watching a film that is so fantastical that feels like another world because it
Hmm.
is.
Yep.
It was cool to like really be immersed in that in Dolby, but it was completely packed, like completely packed in there. Um, and everyone was wearing like pink. There were some girls who were literally dressed in the boots, like the bandana, the cowboy hat, like that
Mhm.
Barbie still that was coming out.
Hell yeah.
Um, yeah, and we had, I mean, everyone from like older couples, like maybe in like their 70s,
Hmm.
also literal babies, like actual babies. Like there was a baby
No
crying
way.
in there. Yeah.
Well, that's the
Uh,
worst thing.
it luckily it wasn't too bad or too long. Like it was towards the end.
Hmm.
Um, but it was completely packed. And I can't remember the last time, like Oppenheimer aside, like where I went and like you said, where it was like full on like event and everyone was like in it. Because I've been to some others like what was that horror movie that came out? Was it called Smile? The one where literally
Yeah.
everyone just smiled. Okay.
Smile.
I went in that and it was packed and the crowd sucked. And no one
Mhm.
was in it. No one was reacting. It was just people talking like it was terrible. This, it was packed and everyone was just like down. Everyone was on board and everyone was having a blast.
That's
And I really
awesome.
missed that in movies.
Hmm. Yeah, especially in the summertime. I always noticed that in the summertime, there's a lot more disrespectful people in the cinema. A lot of people
Hmm.
who just go watch a movie and then they just talk or on the phone,
Yeah.
which I noticed with the last couple of movies I watched. So
Uh-huh.
it's great to see people come, especially in Barbie, we had people talking, and
Hmm.
there was people in my row on the far right and far left. So it was just like people talking from both sides, which sucked a little bit,
Yeah.
but for the most part, people were really respectful.
Yeah, good.
Oppenheimer, though, people were just down. People were
Yeah.
locked in, ready, and it was great.
So tell me about the Oppenheimer then. What time was your Oppenheimer screening? Was everyone, was that one more packed than Barbie?
It was. Oppenheimer was completely packed. Every seat was taken. It
Yeah.
was around 8 p.m., I think, when it started. And people were just, even after the movie started, people were still coming in and
Yeah.
trying to find their seats. And it was completely packed. I haven't seen such a packed room since Endgame, actually, because I went to the
Wow.
Endgame premiere and every seat was taken. It was super
Yeah.
hot in the room,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was the same for Oppenheimer, which was just great to see.
Yeah. And very fitting, I guess, to be in just packed into a hot room while watching explosives
Exactly. There
on
you go.
screen.
What about
Yeah,
your Oppenheimer screening?
yeah. So like I said, I went Sunday, so at the very tail end at the week of the weekend and
Hmm.
completely sold out. The only seats that were open were those like first two rows where
Hmm.
no one sat because it's IMAX and you'll go blind literally
Yeah.
sitting that close, but completely packed. There was one dude who literally came in a suit. It was hilarious. Came
Mhm.
straight suited out. Um, he was ready. He was ready for this occasion.
Damn.
Um,
I
but yeah,
didn't
like
think someone would dress up for Oppenheimer, but he
I
did it.
didn't think so either. But this dude was, yeah, he showed up with his girl. His girl came in some nice dress as well, but he
Mhm.
was just white shirt, black tie, black pants,
Hell yeah.
and but yeah, dude, completely packed singing. I haven't been to an IMAX movie in a while,
Hmm.
and it was awesome to experience it in that in a massive theater, and we're seated right in the very middle too, like as middle you could get in that theater.
Hmm.
Um, so it was a damn near perfect, viewing experience,
Hmm.
and people were in it. People were really into Oppenheimer, clapping, cheering along. Like when they name dropped JFK, people went fucking crazy.
Yeah. Which felt like
Um,
a Marvel Easter egg. That was just so odd.
Literally, that's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah.
Or like when Rami Malek like goes up and essentially
Yep.
saves everyone's like, yeah, let's go.
Hmm. Yep.
Although I will say my favorite part of the entire screening was before the movie started and they were
Hmm.
showing trailers, which I don't. I'll talk about you. Maybe you saw it for one of these movies. They showed the trailer for Killers of the Flower Moon,
Yep. Same here.
and when Jesse Plemons comes on screen, someone in the
Mhm.
back just yells "nerd," and
No way.
everyone just busted out laughing.
I hope
And
someone
that was my.
recorded that.
I wish I could have got it. It was so funny, and that was my favorite part of both
Mhm.
movies. Was that guy calling Jesse Plemons a nerd in the Killers of the Flower Moon trailer?
That's funny. But the trailer played for me as well, and as you know,
Was
I
that your
didn't
first
watch
time seeing it then?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I waited.
Yes. Seen it on the
Dude,
big screen. What are your thoughts on that? Just to sidetrack for a second.
it looks incredible. I
It
mean,
looks dope.
I just hope it'll get a cinema release over here because I
I'm
need
sure
to
it
watch it on
will. I'm
the big
sure
screen.
it will.
It looks holy shit. It looks so freaking good. I absolutely cannot wait.
It looks awesome. October, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, hey, let's go ahead and get into the movies itself then. I you want to
Hey,
start
what
with
about the
some.
seats? You wanted to tell the seats that moved?
Oh yeah, so that was in the Dolby screenings. They have these first off, they're just nicer seats. They recline back. You can put your
Mhm.
legs up, and then they also shake. So I was like, oh my god, IMAX is about to be stupid. Then I was
Mhm.
like, that's going to be like a freaking roller coaster. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Um, and it was just the normal ass seats. Couldn't recline nothing, which shows just how privileged we are here
Mhm.
with the movies. But I was thinking about it. I was like, honestly, if there is a Dolby screening available of Oppenheimer, I might go back and go see it in Dolby.
Mhm.
I think it might low key be. You don't have the same full size screen,
Yeah.
obviously, but it's still a massive screen. But I think that immersion with the seats really um, helps a lot. And I can only imagine for Oppenheimer, it's probably a trip.
Isn't it distracting? Because I always thought it might be distracting when the seats just suddenly start moving, or is it
Well,
very?
it's not. So it's not. There are things, at least over here, called D box seats, which is legitimate. Like you sit in, and it's like, do do do.
Yeah,
This
we have
is just
those.
like, yeah. This is just like there's clearly like speakers in the seats, and
Mhm.
like so it just like will rattle, but it's not the whole seat is going crazy.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's it's stationary and fine. It's just there
Mhm.
are all speakers in each seat. So
Mhm.
during loud parts, it will just rattle just because of the immensity of the sound is all.
Okay.
Um, but it just made it really because you're literally it's just like right in your ears, and it's very like subtle noises that you are constantly hearing. It's like if you've noticed on like Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, like they added like that Dolby Surround or Dolby Atmos or whatever.
Mhm.
And so it's like when you listen to it on your AirPods or your headphones or earbuds or whatever, and you hear it that way, it's just that it's literally like surround sound in your home, which all movie theaters are, I know. But
Mhm.
Dolby is just it's crisp, it's way more layered. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna try to see if there's a Dolby screening of Oppenheimer. I think if people only saw it in IMAX, I think it might be worth also seeing in Dolby because while the sound is also obviously good in IMAX, that
Mhm.
Dolby is very immersive.
Definitely let us know which one you prefer.
Yeah, because I think I'm definitely gonna go back.
Mhm.
I feel like I have to see it again on the big screen. Barbie, I could probably wait until it comes out to just buy the Blu-ray or whatever.
Mhm.
But Oppenheimer, I'm like, I feel like I gotta see it one more time on a massive ass screen.
Hell yeah. But when?
Also,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
real quick. Also, I just want to say, also I saw Tenet twice in theaters, so I think that means Oppenheimer's at least deserving of like 5 viewings. If I saw piss ass Tenet twice.
Definitely. Definitely.
But let's get to which. What do you want to start with? You want to talk Barbie first? You want to talk Oppie?
Let's start with Barbie. I think Barbie
Yeah, let's
is
do it.
the way we
I
both watched.
yeah. I well, first off, what were your overall thoughts on it?
I liked it a lot. It was
Yeah.
a bit different than I expected
Mm-hmm.
in a certain way. Because remember, when there's a movie you're like really excited for, and then you watch it, and then afterwards you feel a little bit empty because you're like, what now?
Yeah.
So that happened, and then me and my girlfriend weren't really sure. I immediately knew I liked the movie, but I was like,
Yeah.
did I just expect more? Or is it that
Yeah.
feeling of emptiness, like what now? Because I was so hyping it up.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
like the day after a concert when you feel just like like that post-concert depression they call it, you know?
exactly, exactly. And we had that, but I knew I liked it. Um, but I just wasn't sure how much. And it was faster for me than my girlfriend. She took a little bit longer to really get how much she liked it.
Mm.
But I did then like it even more, and I've been constantly thinking about it, and I want to watch it again. So yeah, it was very good. But like I said, different, a little bit different than I expected.
What
What
was
a-
it that you were expecting?
I'm actually not sure. It's difficult to pinpoint.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a certain feeling that I wasn't quite sure. Did it deliver on the hype? Because I hyped it up more than we all maybe should. Because it's not the movie's
Yeah.
fault.
No, yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah. And that's
it,
that's the issue with all these movies, and we've talked about that in the past, like when we talked about Into the Spider-Verse and or Across or whichever one, and
yeah,
yeah, it's tough to live up to that.
exactly. But it's not the movie's fault, and I still loved it. I was just like, oh, I expected it to be this, and that's my fault. But
Yeah.
then I thought about it, more time passed, and the hype sort of settled down, and then I really appreciated the movie the way it
Yeah,
should be appreciated.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Was it the same for you, or?
I yeah, I mean I really liked it like even immediately. I went with my girlfriend and even like immediately after she's like that was literally like the most fun I've had in a
Mhm,
movie theater ever.
mhm.
And I probably would agree too because we were just laughing the whole time. I think I might have been the person laughing the most in that theater because there were multiple occasions where I just busted out and it was complete silence in the theater.
Mhm.
I think this was probably one of the funniest Ryan Gosling performances he's ever given. It is
Well,
so funny.
mhm.
Um, in terms of expectations, I think I knew that it wasn't going to be. I think I knew that it was going to subvert any expectations, so I tried to not have any. Which I know it's not like you were trying to have one; it's just inevitable that you're going to
Sure.
have some kind of expectation.
Mhm.
But I was just like, I tried to like make a point of it. Like, no, no, like just don't even think about it at all. Because one, when I knew Noah Baumbach was writing it, and also obviously Greta, but especially with Noah, someone who is very like pretentious in a good way. Like, I'm like, there's no way this is just going to be some random Barbie, like run of the mill, big studio, get people in seats type of movie.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm excited with the way they took it because it wasn't what I expected either in terms of the story. But I like that I went in blind and didn't
Mhm.
really know the story at all. I thought it was, in fact, I honestly thought it was going to be a little darker going into it.
Really?
Yeah,
Mhm.
because I think I knew that there was going to be talks. Because this is another, I gotta get off Instagram, man, because it always bothers me when I see people in these comments and whatnot. Because it was very like there was a lot there, but everyone's like, "Oh, it's a real subtle thing about feminism and this and that's." Like subtle. It's not subtle at all. I think we all know this is a film about feminism, dude. Like this is
Mhm.
not like what you know what I mean. But I think I expected something like dark, like more in the existential realm, as
Mhm.
opposed to where it switched and turned to like not that it's a bad thing at all. It's a
Yeah.
great thing to be this film that like women can look at and be like, hell yeah, like this is how it is.
Mhm.
But I think the only small expectation I had was maybe like, oh, I thought it was going to be like a dark, like existential crisis and like be almost like a weird, dark, like Wizard of Oz kind of thing, which it kind of wasn't, but it was
Mhm.
more Toy Story than Wizard of Oz. And I thought it was going to be more of the former.
Mhm.
But I think that was maybe the only small expectation I had, really.
You definitely explained it well because that's what like went through my head because we actually watched Wizard of Oz before this because
I saw you log it on Letterboxd. Yeah.
I've never seen it before, so I heard it was one of the inspirations, so I watched it
Wait, hold up. That was your first time watching Wizard of Oz?
first time. Never seen it before,
Whoa, that's crazy. Well,
and
what'd
I
you
thought
think?
it was great, especially for that time. It was the first
Yeah,
color film, right?
I think it's recognized as the first one
The
to
first
really bring
major,
about color, but I think there's been some earlier instances for sure.
yeah, the production design just unreal, and you can see the
Yeah,
inspiration. But like you said, we also expect it to be a bit more a deeper dive, which isn't a bad thing. I like that it's on the nose and not very subtle because it tells you the
yeah,
things it wants to tell you, which I then appreciated more. But like you
yeah.
said, I expected it to go more in the existential, to be darker. So you definitely nailed it with that
And
one.
I
That
think
was,
I
yep.
yeah, and I think they did that because they knew that there is going, regardless, even though it's not a kids movie at all. Like it is an adult movie, but I think they still wanted to make it so that way young girls or young kids in general could still look at it and be like, yeah, like this, like they need to be told. You know what I mean? So I think if they would have gone at it of like, no, 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 like this is not for kids, then I think it would have been that. But that's not what their purpose was. They really wanted to make it so everyone could be involved, and that's why the screening was so fun because everyone was there. So it was a good decision on their part for sure to do that.
Those are great thing because you have you in some scenes they sort of go a little bit deeper, but it's still as a whole, it's for everyone, like you said, and
Hmm.
that's what makes it great. And I appreciate it. I appreciate that
Yeah,
more.
100%. Um, well, and I guess we probably have already spoiled it, but I was just thinking about it now. It's like if you haven't seen either movie, definitely stop listening if you
Mhm.
haven't already. But I'm pretty sure we've already spoiled at least both a little bit. But or maybe we haven't. But I'm sure you're probably not listening if you haven't seen it, or you
I hope
probably
so.
have seen it since everyone has.
But going
Um,
forward, full spoilers.
yeah. So what did you think about like the casting of Barbie and how
Perfection.
immaculate it was really?
Perfection. The casting was so great. Every single actor, every single actress, everyone involved was just so perfect. Ryan Gosling steals the show, of course.
Hmm. Oh
He
yeah.
is a 10 out of 10. But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of standouts in both films.
Oh yeah.
With Michael Cera in this one,
Yeah, Alan.
super funny. He was one of my favorite characters. He was so great. But yeah,
Same.
did you have like a favorite character or?
I mean, Gosling for sure. Like it's an obvious one to say. He was just like I said. I think it's one of his funniest, if not his funniest,
Mhm.
performances.
Yeah,
Um, because it's probably the goofiest performance he's given in a
and you
way.
can
You
tell
know,
he's having fun.
he had a blast.
Hmm.
And Margot Robbie, this role was made for her. Like this was like the role for her.
100%.
Um, so it was perfectly cast. I really, like you said, Michael Cera was really funny. I
Hmm.
loved Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie. That was
She
a
was
great casting choice.
great. Hmm.
Because
I like the
she is
mom.
so weird.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
America Ferrera, I think her name is. She was
Oh yeah,
great.
America Ferrera, she was awesome.
Hmm.
Whoever they got to play America Ferrera's daughter was really good as well, I
Yep.
thought. And then one of the real great casting choices that I thought, which I didn't even know that he was going to be in the movie, was Will Ferrell as the head of Mattel.
Hmm.
Really was a perfect kind of casting, especially afterwards when I thought about the movie Elf, where I'm like, oh, he's kind of like playing the reversed version of what he did in Elf in a
True,
way.
yeah. And he
But
looks a little bit like the Mattel CEO, which is funny.
does he
Mhm.
like the real
Yeah,
CEO?
a little
Oh,
bit.
I didn't even look him up. That's funny.
Hmm.
But it was great. Did you know he was going to be in the movie?
I did.
Yeah.
And John
I don't
Cena.
know.
Let's not forget about him.
John Cena, that's right. The little
That was fun.
cameo, which I would like to make an announcement. I'm very upset with Greta Gerwig. We had like four different Dua Lipa cameos. Couldn't get me one Ice Spice cameo. Not one Ice Spice in the
I think
movie.
that decision came later for the Ice Spice Nicki Minaj song.
Did it?
I think that was after
It
they
makes it
finished
makes
filming.
sense because it makes sense. I don't think Ice Spice even really kind of popped off until like maybe a year ago. I'm sure they're probably well through filming at that point.
Yeah,
But
because I remember
yeah,
they announced that the Barbie song, like that, the one they
yeah,
played at the end, that it wouldn't be in the film. And a lot of people were mad at it.
uh-huh,
And I'm not sure if they just said it so people don't expect it,
yeah,
but I think maybe the backlash, they were like, oh, let's just get someone to make a new version and then include it. So maybe that's why that
yeah,
decision came later. But I'm not sure.
yeah. Yeah, I was really looking forward to seeing my Munch princess up there,
Mhm.
but she did she did not pull up. I was very bummed, but yeah,
At
a
least you
ton
got
of
the
cool.
song as a
At least we got the
certified.
song, and that shit slapped for the end credits
Mhm. A lot of
right
great
when that came
songs.
up.
The whole
Oh yeah,
soundtrack, so good.
a lot of good original songs too that they
Mhm.
were doing. Um, yeah, it was really good. Um, now for should we go through the plot at all for Barbie or
Let's do it. I wanted to
for
ask you
those
what
who
your favorite moment was, but maybe we can go through the plot and then.
Yeah. Well, let's run through the plot real quick and then kind of go through it that way.
Hmm.
Um, so Barbie, played by Margot Robbie, she kind of opens up, and when the film opens, she's kind of just living, going through like her normal daily routine, right?
Hmm.
And and it's all going by just perfect until day two. Was it day two? Or like the next day when she wakes up and then all of a sudden like the water in the shower is hot. She
It
like
was after the
spit.
party.
Yes, that's right. After that party, when was that? When she's like, "Do any of you guys think about death?" Was that at the first party?
That's when it started. And then she went to bed, and then the next day.
Okay, that's what it was. But it was super funny because then her feet were flat. She had cellulite, like a little bit of cellulite on her thigh.
Hmm.
And that's when her friends tell her that she has to go visit Weird Barbie, to go find out what's happening to her. And that's where Weird Barbie says you have to go to the real world and find the kid who's playing with you, so that way you can cheer him up or whatever, so that way you can go back to being a perfect Barbie. So she goes on the road to, which was a very cool visual thing that they did to show her transitioning from the Barbie world to the real world.
Hmm.
Which it was one of your stills I saw
Two of
on your
them.
IG. Was it two of them?
Yeah, I had the one in the car and then the one on the bikes.
The one on the bikes where it's like in Holland. That one was, I
Yep.
loved that part. That was very funny.
I love
Um,
the space one. Or Ken was
yes,
trying to grab onto it. That also looked great.
yes.
I'm saving that
Uh,
still for a space themed role.
okay, good. I was hoping there was a lot of stills where I was watching where I was like, I can see Dino's gonna have a field day with this movie
I
in the
did.
future.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Ken tags along. He's in love with Barbie. Barbie is not so in love with him. Um, and he tags along. And when they get to the real world, they somehow just appear in Venice Beach. Which it's funny how they don't really acknowledge. They're kind of like, oh, how did we like? It was very meta, this movie as well. We're like, oh, you'll
Was.
just appear, no questions
Mhm.
asked. Like you'll just appear.
Mhm.
Um, so they get there to Venice Beach, and they're kind of adjusting to the real world, and they're shocked to see that like construction workers are not respectable young, men who are super nice. They're just like catcalling her and like, trying to, make her feel uncomfortable. Um, and while they're there, she learns how weird the real world is and how
Mhm.
unlike Barbie Land it is, while Ken also realizes it's very different, but sees it as a much better place because men are in charge,
That was so
which
fun.
I think is the best plot point slash character aspect, I think, of the entire movie. I think
When
that makes the whole movie.
when he discovers patriarchy and just thinks
When he
it's the
just
best thing
yes,
ever.
yes, I think
Super
that
fun.
that is what really set this movie apart for me
Yeah,
personally.
same. And it made
That was
for
the
a
one
lot
thing that
of
I
great jokes.
say it again.
It made for a lot of great jokes.
Oh my God, amazing. And there was so much where he just sees them riding like the cops on horses, and then he's just obsessed with horses,
Hmm.
um, about the patriarchy. It was so funny. But that was the one thing I didn't expect from this movie. Like how I mentioned, I didn't expect it to just be like this. I mean, I knew it was going to be some feminist thing, but
Hmm.
that take I thought was so original and so smart for Ken to go from Barbie Land, where he really is, like, where the roles really are reversed in Barbie Land,
Hmm.
where it's women who run it and men are kind of just there, sort of just to be there.
Hmm.
So I thought that was really clever for him to go and to discover that the real world is very much the opposite,
Hmm.
um, version. I thought that was really funny.
Same here. And
Um,
it just made it interesting because he wasn't treated well in Barbie Land because Barbie just always he was very mean to him. And then him
mhm.
just coming there and seeing, oh, they respect me here just for being a man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There was a ton of great moments, in that as well, where he goes to get the judge. He's like, "Are you a doctor?" He's like, "No, but I'm a man." And
Hmm.
she said,
Let me do
"That
this.
was
I'm
that
a
was
man. can I speak to the man in charge? And she's like, I am. Like, can I
I am
speak
in
to the
charge.
surgeon? She's like, I'm the surgeon.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, Ken learns about this patriarchal system and he loves it. So he returns back to Barbie Land and indoctrinates all the other Kens with this idea of the real world and the patriarchy,
Hmm.
and completely turns Barbie Land around into, this Ken eccentric place, Ken centric. And the Mount Rushmore of Barbies has changed to a Mount Rushmore of horses, which was one of the
Hmm.
funniest stills I had seen from that movie. Um, and Barbie's in the real world, and she discovers that uh, that her, I guess, owner is Gloria, who is a Mattel employee,
Hmm.
and her daughter is the one that she initially finds like at the school, and she's kind of the daughter's just like sort of shitting on Barbies and is just saying like you're what's everything that's wrong. You're the reason women are this way. Da, 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 da,
Calls her a
da. And it's kind of just
fascist.
yeah, called her a fascist. That was so
Mhm.
funny.
Yeah.
Um, and so anyway, she's having this identity crisis because Gloria, the mom, is also having that.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, Barbie brings them back to Barbie Land, and they pretty much are trying to overtake Ken and Ken Land or whatever they called that to take back what's theirs essentially,
Hmm.
and and also at that same point, Will Ferrell's character, the CEO of Mattel, he comes into Barbie Land also,
Hmm.
trying to chase him down and try to get it. And through the use of or through the help of some discontinued dolls like Adam or what's his name, Alan,
Alan.
Weird Barbie, and like some of the other discontinued Barbies,
Hmm.
they manipulate all the Kens to fight against each other, so that way they can make it Barbie Land again.
Hmm.
And they kind of make up at the end, and they everything kind of works out for the best. But Barbie decides to follow her pursuit of being a human, and the film ends with her going to a gynecologist.
Which was the craziest way to end this film. Th-
Yeah.
No one expected it. And I think because before that they announced that the CEO of Mattel wanted to cut one scene out,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure it's the last line. But they invited him to set, and he had so much fun. He was like, "Okay, you can keep it in."
Oh, no way.
Yeah, because you would expect her to go maybe to Mattel and start working there, or like she's at a job
Yeah.
interview. She's like, "I'm here to
Yeah.
see my gynecologist." So funny.
Yeah.
What a
I
way to close your film.
Yeah, I love that Mattel like was just down for this. I love that they were down to play ball and they weren't afraid to poke fun at themselves
It's paying
and just have fun.
it's paying off big time. They're making so much money, and hopefully it sends the right message to all the studios
Hmm.
that hey, let creative people be creative and let them take risk. I just fear that they might take the wrong lessons from this and try to release two shit movies at the same day in order to make, which they will,
Yeah,
they 100% will,
of course. Of
yeah,
course.
which will backfire.
Um, yeah. It's they'll try to push for anything, kind of like how I mentioned Bird Box earlier, how after that they constantly like that meme marketing like became a thing for movies.
Mhm.
Like people were literally marketing their films through memes.
Yeah.
Um, which I mean they still do to this day. Barbenheimer is a great example of that. It was all like memes, like a
Mhm.
lot of it at least was, um,
Done well.
in terms of pushing it. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Did you have any favorite moments now that we got through the plot?
yeah. I think I mean I really seeing Ryan Gosling come like just every time that he was having a conversation with someone in the real world
Mhm.
where he's just mind blown. He's just like a puppy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were also funny. Like I mentioned the scene earlier that I really liked a lot, where he's talking to the surgeon,
Mm-hmm.
and she sang, or he sang to her, where's I gotta speak to the man in charge, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, those were all my favorite moments, and just the obsession with horses, I thought was so funny.
That was super funny. What I really
Yeah,
liked was all the film bro jokes. The
yeah,
one uh, where there were a couple. They mentioned the Zack Snyder cut, which
yes,
completely cut me off. I
yes,
didn't expect that. I just came out of left field. That
yeah.
was very funny. And the scene where they try to distract one Ken by saying they've never seen The
The
Godfather.
Godfather, genius.
That was so. It was like you have never seen it. It's the one of the best films. It's so funny. And I think I'm not sure. I have to rewatch it, but I think there was an American Psycho joke in there
Oh,
because
was
one
there?
of the Kens was talking about like a musical album. Like, he was
Uh-huh.
standing next to a stereo. He was like, this
Oh,
was a masterpiece." But I'm not sure if maybe that was just in my head. But
oh,
I
I
think that
didn't
was
catch that either.
yeah, that was just very funny. And what I because now the movie came out a couple days ago, I've seen people talk about it, and it's so funny to see the meltdown of some of the film bros because they can't decide if they like Ryan Gosling or hate him right now
Why?
because they love him because he wasn't Drive, and they're
Yeah,
genuinely mad he's in Barbie. They're like, how dare he be in Barbie? And their meltdown is just one of the funniest things.
really?
Yeah, it's so funny.
Wow. I mean, I'm not shocked, but I've not caught on to that. I haven't caught that.
They're on the internet. They're definitely mad.
Like I
At
said,
least,
I try to avoid the I really do think, because I love films, all that, but really the community online is really annoying.
mhm,
Like, really annoying with their takes.
mhm. And they make
Like
fun of it in
all
this
film
film.
bros. Yeah, and I love that they did the Godfather. I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot about that. That
That was
Godfather
my
bit was
favorite
so
scene.
funny.
I laughed so hard. It was just so great.
It was
And I
so
love
good.
when Alan fights the other Kens,
Yeah, and he's just beating that ass.
beating them up. It was, and there was even a Trump joke in there
Was
when
there?
they're building the wall, and he's like, "Wait until they decide to not build it high, but like
Uh-huh.
they said,
Oh,
like
that's
because
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, they just tried to make a like high wall, but they haven't decided to make it
Expand it
what it's
wide at
called
all.
and wide. Yeah,
Yeah, that
that
was
was
funny. There was, and speaking of the meta stuff that I mentioned earlier, there was a ton of stuff where they were very self-aware. Like there's the one moment um, where the voiceover comes in, which was Helen Mirren doing the narration, and
yep,
she's like, "Note to the producers or note to the filmmakers: don't cast Margot Robbie in a role when dealing
hmm
with topics like this," because she's talking about how she doesn't feel she's pretty or whatever.
yep,
I thought that was really funny.
very
Um,
meta.
and then when they showed the founder of Barbie, what's her name, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm the founder of Barbie, and also beat a tax evasion charge or whatever it was, tax fraud or whatever it
Yeah,
was."
which I think happened in real life. Barbara
Yeah,
was her name.
yeah, yeah.
That was
Because I think that was the
hilarious.
name of her daughter, was like Barbara, or called her Barbie as a
Yeah,
nickname or
that's
something like that.
why she called Barbie.
Yeah.
Hmm
But that was very, very funny. Any other standout moments in Barbie?
Mm. Well, like you said, every scene with Ryan Gosling, the one in the end where he's in her bed crying and she's
Hmm.
cheering him up and telling him it's not he said it's Barbie and Ken, but she
Yeah,
said maybe it's Barbie and Ken, so he
yeah,
can be his own person. And I just
yeah.
hope we get a Ken spin-off film with him trying to find who he really is. I think that would be hilarious. His musical
That would be
number
funny.
as well, dude.
Amazing.
One of the best songs ever made.
Ever dropped. It was
That
amazing.
performance, it was great.
There
Them
was
just singing and mhm.
that was one where he like started off and it was like, I remember my girlfriend looked, she's like, "That's him singing," because at first he's kind of like singing in like in cursive. They say it was like "Arr, arr," and it's like really gruff, and then but he actually is a good singer even when he's trying to not be a good singer. He still is.
He always is. Even if he tries to be bad, he's awesome. He's
Yeah,
Ryan Gosling.
very talented young gentleman right there.
Mhm. He should
But
act
yeah,
in
the
more
music in
movies.
this was great. What'd you say?
He should act in more movies, that talented young gentleman.
He should. Yeah, he's got potential, I think. I think he'll have
Definitely.
quite a good career ahead of him.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, also I'm curious to know any other movies. I know you mentioned that you rewatched Wizard of
Mhm.
Oz before this. Did you rewatch anything else for it, or think of any other movies that you think maybe these characters might like, or you think would pair well,
Mhm.
or anything in the same vibe?
I have a couple. Well, for Bobby, I think Clueless works well with this film.
Hmm.
I think Barbie would also like. Legally Blonde is another one. I think that also very like funny films. But in terms of set design, I think the Jacques Demy films, The
Like
Umbrella
plates.
Sister Work, and I think those
Yeah,
films definitely in terms of like the color palette, which Greta Gerwig even mentioned on the. You watched that, right?
that
Her,
letterboxed video. Yeah,
yeah, and you can tell the movies they were inspired by.
yeah. Because I haven't seen any films by Jacques Demy, I don't think. I was thinking of Jacques Tati at first, like
Mm.
Playtime, um, but which also kind of are the same sort of vibe, very stylistic.
We definitely need to watch a couple of his films in the
Yeah,
future, especially The Umbrellas of
one.
Cherbourg, because you love La La Land,
Yeah,
and that film is like it's pretty much a remake, La La Land of
really.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Mhm. It's this French film, and it looks gorgeous. It's one of my favorite films. We definitely need to
Interesting.
talk about it one day.
I gotta get on that.
Hmm. Yeah, but that's for Barbie. I have a couple films that I think Ken would like. Maybe
Yeah,
just Letterboxd top four, but maybe you. Do you have any films that you think pair well?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I know for like some of the obvious ones, like Wizard of Oz, but to me,
Mm.
like Toy Story, I was like, this is like Toy Story. This movie is
Yeah.
kind of like a retelling of Toy Story in like a weird way.
Hmm.
Um, which I thought that Barbie would probably really like a lot as like a
Hmm.
person like being like, oh, and Ken too, probably.
They're in the third,
Um,
both of them. So,
oh, that's right. Yeah, that's
hmm,
right. Totally
yeah.
forgot about that.
Hmm.
Um, But yeah, that was kind of the first one that sort of came to mind when I was watching. I feel like we said, it's just so fresh
Hmm.
that I can't really think about it fully.
Hmm. But I'm very excited to check it out again because I just appreciate it more, and the more I think about it, it could definitely be one of my favorite films.
Yeah. Do you think you're gonna give it another rewatch in theaters, or do you think you're gonna wait until it comes out?
Probably not in theater because I'm kind of broke with all the films that came out. I mean,
Very true.
I think we counted, and I think this year, and I mean, it's only July, I've been in the cinema 18, 19 times,
That'll do it to you.
which is a lot, especially on a student budget. So I need to slow down a bit, at least until September, October, if the movies don't get pushed back,
Yeah.
which they might.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
they're good films.
So would you say that Barbie, of the 18, 19, whatever screenings that you've been to this year, would you say that Barbie slash Oppenheimer would be at the top of those for the year in terms of the experience?
Top five for sure, maybe in top three.
Interesting.
Definitely up
Hell
there.
yeah.
It was a great
Hell yeah.
experience, great film.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about any movies for Ken that you
Hmm.
think he would really like?
I have a couple, so I think he would like Top Gun. He would be in
Yeah.
love with that film, definitely. Then The Horse Whisperer, because of the whole horse jokes with Robert Redford.
Hmm.
That one, maybe even Brokeback Mountain. Just two guys.
I was just thinking about that.
Yep, I think he would like that movie.
I
Have you
feel
seen
like
that?
he would watch that and be like, these guys have a real awesome friendship.
100% that's what I thought. He wouldn't even like get them. He was like, "Oh, they're very close. They're two bros."
Yeah.
Because even after they sing, he does the sing, and they're fighting, but then all of a sudden they just start holding hands and hugging each other,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was super funny. Have you seen that short film Kung Fury?
No, it sounds really familiar, but I haven't seen it.
It's on YouTube. It's only like half an hour. David Hasselhoff's in it.
Okay, I'm gonna check it
Kung
out.
Fu. Ken would love that film. It's a great film. It's so much fun. You need to check it out.
I'll check that out. Kung Fury. I'm gonna write that down so I don't forget.
It involves time travel, kung fu, sci-fi.
You know what?
Even
I
has
think
a
maybe I
talking
have
car.
seen this.
You might have. David Hasselhoff is
I
like
think
talking car.
I've seen this. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's just
Mm.
completely crazy mashup of genres.
Yep. You go back in time.
Yes.
Hitler is in it. A T-Rex. Whatever.
Yes.
It's everything. And I
I might have
think
to give that a rewatch. That's funny.
That's a very Ken film. I think
Oh
a
yeah.
very manly film. And he would like Scarface as well.
Yeah. I think
Just
so
think it's
too.
awesome. Yeah. Those are just a couple I wrote down. Do you have any?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, well, Brokeback Mountain was definitely one that I thought of.
Hmm.
But I think also some very much like man's movies. Like I feel like you would probably watch like The Wild Bunch and just
Hmm.
be like, oh my God, this is awesome. They're riding on horses, they're
Hmm.
shooting people, they're men, and
Hmm.
they're in charge. Um, or maybe even something like I could see him getting down maybe with like a Wolf of Wall Street as well.
Hmm. Yep. That's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah, yeah,
Just westerns in general.
I think so too. Well, in keeping with our show, I guess we'll do it for well, we can do it for both. So, but I guess starting with Ken, on a scale of 1 to 10 horses,
Hmm.
1 to Ken horses,
Yep.
how much is Ken literally you?
Ken is a 10 out of 10. A Ken out of Ken. He is
Ken out of Ken, yeah.
literally me as much as it gets. How about you?
I I would say it's pretty up there.
Mm.
Maybe an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Because he's so happy go lucky and so yeah, like he's just a golden retriever.
Hmm.
And I love that. I just hope maybe I have just slightly more intelligence than
Hmm.
than Ken, just barely. But Ken is Kenough,
Hmm. He
and
is enough.
yeah, he
And
is.
anyone
Well,
listening, you are enough. Whatever you're going through, you can do this.
yeah. What about you can do it? What
Hmm.
about Barbie on a scale of 1 to 10? Gynecologists.
Hmm.
How much are you literally like Barbie?
I might give her a 10 out of 10 Ken as well. Maybe a
Yeah,
9. But Barbie
yeah.
is up there as well. They're both very relatable.
I think that I would put Barbie higher. I think the only thing that would keep it from a 10 is that like, oh, I just can't, I guess, relate to like the feminine struggle of life.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
beyond that, I very much just relate to her in every other way.
Hmm. Hell yeah. They're both
But
Ken and Kens. They're both in Ken of.
yeah, they're both enough in this movie was well worth the wait and had a great
Mhm.
time watching it. And I think it was the perfect mood raiser
Mhm.
before going into the great Oppenheimer um, by our boy Chris Nolan.
Mhm.
Um, I genuinely don't even know how to begin this part of of the discussion.
Same here. Let's just get into it. It's gonna get very intense,
Yeah.
but
I guess to spare, won't do like a proper plot thing, but I think the one thing, at least just to mention it first, and maybe we can work at it that way, is I
mhm.
feel the film is 3 hours long. I
Mhm.
feel like it's the way that it's structured is the first hour is almost one film, the second hour is another one, the third hour is a third film. And I think the best way to go about it is maybe starting from hour one, going through there, then hour two, and then
Mhm.
concluding with hour three, perhaps.
That's a great way and a very great. It does feel like that. So you described it perfectly. It feels like three different films
Yeah,
in
and I
a
guess
good
for
way.
those in a great way, it's
Mhm.
I well, I guess before we even get into that, what were your initial thoughts on Oppenheimer, and what did you think? Like as soon as the credits came up and you saw that Oppenheimer title card at the end.
Well, it's definitely one of my favorite Nolan films he's ever done.
Hmm.
It's one of the most intense biopics ever made. I mean, the stuff he did there, the fact that so many people are showing up, of course, it's Nolan, a lot of people are going to show up, but
Regardless.
regardless, but the way he makes these big budget studio films, but maintains his style and his idea and just the way he makes these films is incredible because he doesn't lose them. He doesn't just become a big budget studio directors like some others do. They where you can
Hmm.
feel they're just making the movie the studio wants them to make.
They're
He
just showing up.
exactly. He just really he has this integrity in the films he makes. It's it's unreal how he gets away with making such a 3 hour long biopic on that budget with that cast, and it remains a Nolan film.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was I
I
was
agree.
blown away.
I agree. Pun intended or no pun intended? Blown away.
Pun intended, definitely. Yeah.
um, I feel the same way. I think it was another thing where it was like immediately I was like, this wasn't what I expected. And I think this is
Hmm.
a movie where I had more expectations than I did for Barbie. Probably because I was more excited to see Oppenheimer than Barbie. Like if I really had to pair it, I mean, like side by side.
Hmm.
Um, Not that I wasn't excited for Barbie. I equally was, but maybe it was like a 52% to 48%,
Hmm.
in favor of Oppenheimer.
Hmm.
Um, so I had a lot of expectations, and it wasn't what that was. So I think inevitably it's gonna like make you sit there and be like, okay, what? Like let me just process that.
Hmm.
And it was one of those where like as soon as it ended, I was like I at the same time I literally didn't even want to get up out of my seat. I just wanted to sit there for the entire theater to clear out and for the
Hmm.
credits to end. And then another part of me was like, I got to get the fuck up out of here. Like I got to get
Hmm.
outside. I got to be in solitude, and I got to like
Yeah.
think.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, it's only been since I got home from the theaters is like 13 hours ago,
Hmm.
and I can't. Again, I know it's only a short amount of time, but I can't stop thinking about Oppenheimer. Even when we were discussing Barbie, I just kept thinking about Oppenheimer just in my head, like in the back.
Hmm.
Um, I do think, especially on rewatches, I think this will go down as one of Nolan's best films.
100%.
And in terms of expectations, I think myself included, and most people might go into it thinking that it's going to be very much about the bomb, like about like a very World War II film about the bomb, about what you don't even see it hit Hiroshima or Nagasaki. Like
Hmm.
that's not even in the film.
Hmm.
Um, and instead, like obviously we all knew it's a biopic, but it's a true character study biopic. Like
Hmm.
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is as much a character study as something like Taxi Driver. Like this is like in the same vein. Obviously, Taxi Driver is a fictional character, but in terms of the intensity of like a study on a man, um, it is really insane. Um, and one thing I do want to mention that I really liked, I think it's interesting the fact that this is the first true biopic that Nolan's done, right? Like
Yeah.
Dunkirk, I wouldn't consider a biopic because it wasn't about any real people, but
Hmm.
um, this was also like being his first biopic. It was also his most surreal movie. Like
100%. Which I didn't
there was
expect.
so at all. Like it
Hmm.
really threw me through a loop. Like when you saw Florence Pugh and him like fucking in the deposition, like
Yeah.
in the little private trial, and
Hmm.
in the way that Nolan, like especially in that word, like the background would shake and you could see everything shaking, and it was
Hmm.
showing just like, yeah, it was really an outstanding movie. And I've seen some negative reviews on it, which we can get into later on. But
Yeah.
I just can't even begin to fathom. Damn, it just started storming. That's probably why my Wi-Fi is so bad. I can't even begin to fathom how anyone could think otherwise. I mean, it was really incredible.
Definitely, like I said, it's very intense, and I didn't expect those surreal moments as well because I
Yeah,
read some negative stuff as well, and a lot of people complained that it wasn't enough about the actual building of the bomb, which I would have loved to see more of that as well. I understand where they're
definitely.
coming, but the way people are complaining, like, oh, the rest isn't interesting, doesn't really make sense because that's not interesting to them, of course, but I thought it was so interesting just to see what it did to him, the
Hmm.
consequences of what he did, the way it affected him. He was not the
Yeah.
same person afterwards. It ate him up.
Oh yeah. You see in with like how we talked about each hour, he is a
Mhm,
different person. Like it's still Oppenheimer and he's still kind of there, but you see he's changing in different ways for better and for worse in
mhm,
each hour that goes on.
mhm. It does feel, and that's what Killian Murphy does so well. He just he goes in and he plays a different version of the same character each time because he goes through a lot of stuff and it's so much for a single man to take in. The
Yeah.
power he had, the stuff that happened because of him. How do you live with yourself?
Yeah.
And that's
And,
just
and that's the thing too. You can for people who want that, I totally get it. And I think that's like I even had friends like that I saw it with who were like, it wasn't what I expected, and they're like, I think I need multiple viewings in order because it's like it isn't about that. And I think a lot of people are going in expecting it to be about that.
mhm. I did too. I
So
expected it to be a lot more because the trailers showed a lot more of
same,
that. So
same.
I thought
And
that's what's going to be. It's not a negative.
100%. And at the same time, I'm glad it didn't. Because then I was saying, I was like, you can go watch any documentary about Oppenheimer. You will learn everything there is about the way they built in all that. But I don't think you will ever get a truly like subjective experience into who J. Robert Oppenheimer was as a human being.
Mhm,
That's what Nolan gave us. You're not getting that anywhere else. Like I saw one review, someone I knew or
mhm,
know, and I actually unfollowed them on Letterboxd after I read it. Gave it a half a star,
mhm,
and they're like boring, yawn. Go read a book about it. You don't even have to go see it. It's like, what book are you going to read where you'll get this? Like,
mhm,
you can go read a book and learn about the historical and the more science aspects of it. Sure, of course, you'll get
mhm,
way more out of it. But that's not what this movie was about, or else it would have just been called The Bomb. It's called
mhm.
Oppenheimer. It's about
True.
Oppenheimer, you
Yeah,
know?
that's true. And like you
Um,
said, there's so many, I don't want to say generic, but there's a lot of historical movies that will just go through that specific event. And you have to think Oppenheimer's life wasn't just building the bomb. He didn't
mhm.
spend 80 years in that camp in New Mexico making the bomb. It was he had
Yeah.
a life before that, and he had a life after with the consequences. And that's what
Hmm.
this movie showed. And it had to
Yeah,
show that because otherwise, like you said, it's not Oppenheimer, it's the bomb.
exactly.
Mhm,
Exactly. And I, yeah, and like I said, I totally get where people are coming from because people are so fixed on their expectations, like we
mhm,
can be sometimes too going into movies, I'm
mhm,
sure. But yeah, it just wasn't that, and I love that. But
mhm.
it was based on a book. Did you look into it at all? The American Prometheus,
I
that
heard
book
that.
that the film's
Mhm.
kind of inspired by.
Well, we can thank Robert Pattinson for this film because he gifted Nolan, after they finished shooting Tenet, he gifted him the book.
Really?
Yeah, and then he read it,
I didn't
and
know
that's,
that.
yeah. So Robert
Whoa.
Pattinson is the real hero of this. But yeah, he gifted him the
That's
book.
crazy.
Hmm. I haven't read the
I
book, but now after watching
Yeah.
the film, I'm very much like curious to check it out.
I think I might try to find a cheap copy on eBay or somewhere online. Um, because I'm super curious because I think maybe it it might. that might be a book where it's like, okay, you'll actually get insight into him as a man, as
Mhm.
opposed to just about the bomb.
I'm sure it's a very dense book, and it's probably not easy to read,
Yeah,
but
I can
you
only
get
imagine.
a lot out of it. So I'm very much curious to read it, and then watch the movie
100%.
after and just compare the two and see how you can make this out of that. It's just
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
were you so what was your previous knowledge slash relationship slash understanding of Oppenheimer prior to the movie?
I didn't really know a lot. I mean, we learned about the Manhattan Project and Oppenheimer and
Uh-huh.
a lot of other scientists in school and about the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but never to this extent, especially about Oppenheimer. I really didn't know a lot about him. I know a lot of my friends who are also very much into movies. They read the book and read Wikipedia articles and watched videos, but I
Hmm.
just wanted to go in with the limited information I had
Yeah,
because I just wanted to have as little knowledge about him as possible. How about
going
you?
into it.
I imagine they probably taught you guys in school more about it, right?
Yeah, but I think the majority of my information all came from just independent research myself. Like for instance, I kind of took the other where I sort of wanted to learn more about
Mm-hmm.
it prior. Um, and I kind of went through like a World War II sort of phase like a couple months ago where I was sort of watching a lot of docs in that kind of time
Mm-hmm.
um or like watching movies that took place, like just things like that kind of getting situated. And particularly one thing I did watch was the Oliver Stone has a series for HBO that it's like the Untold Truth of America or Untold History of America, and it's like 10 or 12 parts. And there is an episode on there. Um, it's like the third or fourth episode called "The Bomb," and it pretty much it starts from World War I and just goes all the way through. I think to like I don't know if it goes to Vietnam or if it goes all the way to like the Iraqi War or something. But the
Mm-hmm.
episode on the bomb is very informative in terms of the actual specifics of what happened, and I think I gave pretty good insight, and it was cool to see it played out in person and adding more insight into things that I wasn't fully aware of as
Mm-hmm.
well, or had a very minimal understanding of.
Mm-hmm. So you knew more about like the scientists as well, because one thing that was very interesting about my screening, right next to me there was a couple, and I think they were scientists. I think they were in college studying maybe physics because they knew a lot and they did talk during the film, but they whispered. But every time something came up, I just overheard them. They had a lot of knowledge about that. And there were even just some scientist comes and he just says his first name and they're like, oh, that's him. So they had a lot of knowledge about scientists and
Yeah,
science, which was interesting to see
yeah,
the crowd that showed up because it wasn't just movie fans, it was science nerds who came to watch
yeah.
this film.
Or history buffs as well.
Yep, yep.
But yeah, I thought that was cool. And well, I'm also curious, going into this, what would you rank like your top three Christopher Nolan movies going into Oppenheimer before seeing it?
I haven't seen all of them. I haven't
Okay.
seen Insomnia, which I'm dying to see because I heard it's great. But I've seen, I think, all the rest. Maybe his first one. What are his first two movies called? One's Insomnia.
His first movie is a movie called Following, and then his second movie is Memento.
Okay, I've seen Memento. Okay, I haven't seen Following and Insomnia.
Okay.
But my
Following
top.
Following was right after Memento.
Okay, that's another one I need to watch.
Or I'm sorry, not Following. Insomnia was right after Memento, is what I mean.
Mhm. Okay, I think it's Memento. That one is great. Inception.
Hmm.
I think Inception might be my number or was my number one. And then, did you ask before Oppenheimer or after?
Pre-Oppenheimer.
Pre-Oppenheimer. Damn, that's tough. Let me just pull up his filmography real quick.
Yeah, pull it up. We got all the Dark Knight movies, Interstellar, Dunkirk,
Hmm.
Tenet.
Yeah, Tenet and Dunkirk. I'm not even gonna mention, especially Dunkirk. I don't like that movie at all.
Really?
Yeah, and The Prestige I also did not. A lot of people are gonna
Really?
hate me. A lot of Nolan fans will and have come after me. I have nothing but love for the guy,
Yeah.
but and respect. But there are a couple films of his that I do not like. But yeah, I think it's Inception, Memento, and I think The Dark Knight. Yeah,
Yeah. And now, after seeing Oppenheimer, does that change at all?
yeah. I think it's in my top three. It's probably Inception, Oppenheimer, and then Memento. But
Hmm.
it's hard because I like all three kind of equally, so you could
Yeah.
shuffle them around.
And after multiple viewings of Oppenheimer, and once the dust settles and time, goes on, it'll probably have
Yeah.
a better ranking as well, at least for me.
Did yours change, or what was it like before Oppenheimer?
Well, number one is Dunkirk. I
Really?
think Dunkirk is incredible.
hmm
Um,
I did
which
not
it's a
like.
movie. Really? Well, we can get into that like later on or in a separate
Mhm.
podcast maybe. But
Yep.
because on first watch I thought it was just okay. Dunkirk
hmm
years ago. That's a movie where with every rewatch I'm like, whoa, this movie is fucking crazy. It's so good. Um, so Dunkirk, it moved up to number one for me within the last, somewhat recently actually, because I rewatched it somewhat recently again
hmm
um, before this. And I think I would throw Interstellar somewhere up there in the top three, maybe at like number three. Another
hmm
one that I like more and more with each viewing. Um,
I need to rewatch it.
yeah, and then maybe I don't know. I probably number two I would have put like I really liked Batman Begins, I think the most out of that trilogy. Like Dark Knight might be the best movie, but there was something about Batman Begins I really like a lot. I like the vibe of that movie like a lot.
It's a great film.
It's awesome.
hmm
Um so maybe that, but now that I'm thinking, I think 100% when time and I'm able to really rewatch Oppenheimer and think about it without all the hype, I think Oppenheimer will probably be that number two or three spot, or maybe one eventually, but it'll certainly make its way in there.
hmm Yeah, I think it's that for a lot of people. It's a lot of people have been saying that's one of his best films.
Yeah. Um, well, like we said, there's kind of three main parts, and that first part is sort of Oppenheimer pre-bomb. Did
hmm
you have any standout moments, or any favorite moments from that first kind of hour before he makes that move to Los Alamos and starts building the bomb?
Well, one thing I wanted to say, I thought it was very interesting how Nolan made the choice of having black and white scenes to show the objective.
Yes.
It's not from his perspective, it's black and white. And if it's from his perspective, it's in color, which I thought was very great.
Mm-hmm.
Standout scene. I don't think from the first like hour. I can't remember one scene that stood out specifically. I think I would have to think about because it's a lot to take in 3 hours, and I saw it
Yeah,
4 days
that's
ago. So
true, and it all kind of blends together.
yeah, so that's why it's hard. But do you
Yeah.
have standout scene or a moment or
From that first, I mean, I really liked seeing like, well, that one scene where it showed him poisoning his damn professor, which actually did happen. Um, that was crazy. That was something I didn't know about, but one of my friends who's a real history buff, who I went to go, he was one of my friends who went to go see it with yesterday. He told me about that. He's like, I hope they put this in the movie, but he literally tried to poison his professor.
that's
It
actually a
didn't
scene I
happen
thought about?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't happen exactly the way that like it was portrayed, but it he did that. So I thought that scene was pretty crazy and very tense, very
So
suspenseful.
he didn't do it the way they showed in the film, but he did. Or how did it happen? How did he try to? Do you know it?
Yeah, so from what my friend told me, he did inject the apple with whatever, and he left it there. He didn't take it back. He was very much down to just let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was, I guess the professor noticed. You remember how there was like kind of liquid leaking out of it still from when he injected it? I
Yeah.
guess the professor noticed it and took the apple and got it tested. And the testing found out that there was poison that had been injected in it. And they actually tried to press charges against Oppenheimer and try to kick him out of the school. But I
So
think
they knew it was
Oppenheimer's
him.
yeah, I'm assuming probably the professor and him had some kind of beef prior
Mm.
or something. Um, but Oppenheimer's dad, I guess, got the dean to let him like forget about it and stay in school.
How do you do? He tried to kill him, and they left him
Literally
to.
tried to murder that man. Yeah.
That's the
I was
thing.
saying that
Hmm.
no, go ahead.
That's the thing because I didn't like him at all. From that, it was immediately that I was like, I don't like this guy
Yeah.
because I don't care how much of an asshole this professor was. Him trying to kill him, that just immediately was like for me, oh, I don't like this guy.
I was saying this yesterday. Like, I didn't realize like Oppenheimer really is a complete menace to society. Like, he is
He
a
is,
menace.
he
He's out
is.
here just banging all these chicks. He's out here trying to kill his professor. He's he is a menace. Like
Mhm.
that guy should have been stopped long
He's
ago.
a homewrecker. Then he had an
Yeah.
affair with this woman who had a man, a husband.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
he's
is the way that they treated his own kids, like just gave him away to his friend,
yeah.
essentially.
Hmm.
Um, like he was a high key, just a piece of shit
Yep,
person.
yep.
Um, but also a lot of redeeming stuff, and you can tell when you watch it that Nolan really genuinely loves this man, and admires him in a way,
Hmm. That
and it comes across, and I do
yeah,
appreciate that.
that's one thing I actually wanted to mention because you probably know this already, but when this news first dropped, we just heard this next film will be titled Oppenheimer.
Hmm.
I immediately thought it would be about Nolan's brother because no, he has two brothers. One of them is the guy who writes some of his
Right,
films,
Jonathan Nolan.
Jonathan. But they have another brother who is a hitman and
What?
has killed people. And yeah, I'm not joking. His third brother, they have no contact with him. I think he's in prison somewhere in South America or something. Yeah, he's a hitman, and his code name was Oppenheimer. So I thought when I first heard Oppenheimer, I thought he was gonna make a movie about his brother, but probably his brother was obsessed with Robert Oppenheimer, maybe as a kid, so that's why it was interesting for Nolan. Then he read all this stuff in the book, and you didn't know this?
I did not know this at all. At all.
I hope I'm not tripping, but I'm pretty sure that's real. I hope people haven't been like pulling a prank on me because I've read it multiple times.
Wow, that is. I'm gonna have to look into that later. That is just absolutely insane. I had no idea. I did not know
Yeah.
that.
So that's why I thought it would be about his brother, but maybe there was some kind of maybe his brother really loved Oppenheimer and then he knew him as a kid and then he read the book and was even more fascinated with him. But yeah.
Yeah, there might be some allegory too, even to him, like to the brother. Like maybe the brother is this person who just, was making bad decisions, but also I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I could actually
Yeah.
draw
There might be
a
a connection.
comparison there or not,
I
but
didn't mean to leave you speechless like that. I thought you knew, but
never knew that. Literally
it's
never knew
crazy,
that.
right? I was shocked
That's
as well.
wild.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Mhm.
Um, wow. But yeah,
Yep.
anyway, so then the second hour of the film goes from the pre of the first hour is kind of him all just going to school, learning, building together
Mhm.
his team. The second is where he's kind of building together his team of scientists to take to Los Alamos to put the bomb together and to
Mhm.
test it out at the Trinity site. And that's where you start to really see all the faces start to come into the movie as
Mhm.
well. That's where you get, Benny Safdie, Josh Peck,
Mhm.
Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck. You get a whole gaggle of people. Alex Wolff, a whole bunch of people popping in. Dane DeHaan in this movie. Matt Damon. I could keep going.
Mhm.
Um, but
And they just
I
popped in like Marvel cameos. People were like, "Oh, I know this guy," and
oh yeah, the
Mhm.
movie is just a who's who of like, oh my gosh, it's that guy.
Yeah, yeah. But
Even at the
Benny
very end,
Safdie was
Benny
the
Safdie
highlight.
killed.
He
He killed.
absolutely killed. He was my favorite character.
I think so too. He
Mhm.
is so good, so funny, very believable accent as well. I thought.
Yep, same.
Well, I'm curious to know your thoughts as as a German. What some of the accents in there, some of which were German, not all by German people though.
Mhm.
For at least from my understanding,
Yeah, they did a good job. There was one German actor, the one who played
Heisenberg.
Eisenberg. He's a very famous German. He was even in Army of Thieves and Army of the Dead, the Zack Snyder film.
Uh huh.
Matthias Schweighöfer is his name. He's a very
Yeah.
known German actor. I was hoping he would be in it more. He was just in it for one scene and then we never saw Heisenberg again.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see him, but Albert Einstein as well. I don't know the actor. He was also great. Stand out.
He was so good in that movie. I'm gonna look up who that actor is
Please do.
too.
He deserves all the credit. He was great.
Let's see, who is that guy? His name is Tom Conti.
Tom Cruise. Has he
Um,
done anything
a
else?
s- he was in The Dark Knight Rises.
Interesting.
Looks like some like I'm not really familiar with any of these movies. He's been in a lot, but I'm just not familiar with any of them. They look kind of like B movies, maybe. Oh, he was
Hmm.
in Mr. Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence with David Bowie. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but he's Scottish. He's not German either, but he had a very believable German accent.
He did. He was great.
And then Teller's not German, is he? Is he like Hungarian?
I think he was. There was one. Yeah, I think he was Eastern European for sure.
Yeah, let's see, Hungarian. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But
but
yeah,
yeah,
the whole cast did such a phenomenal job. There's one more I'm gonna mention later on, who was the
mhm.
standout actor and is gonna, or I should just mention it right now.
I
Robert
think I
Downey
know who you're
Jr.
gonna say. Yeah,
He's gonna win he was incredible.
he was very good. It was one of the best performances I've seen from him in a long time, if not ever. Um,
Yeah.
it really was phenomenal. Another person that I want to say was a standout that I will not get recognized was
Mhm.
Jason Clarke, the one who plays the prosecutor in the trials. That dude was relentless. He
Mhm.
was so believable and so good. I just immediately hated him so
Yep.
much.
He was
That
great.
that I thought is like a great example of a true great supporting performance that won't really get recognized because it wasn't so big.
Mhm.
Um, but wow, what an amazing and just an as equal part of a villain as Strauss was
Mhm.
as Robert Downey Jr.'s character.
Yeah, and you just hated his guts, even though I didn't like Oppenheimer. The way he
Yeah,
antagonized him and the way he just talked to him and was like so infuriating.
because it was unfair. Like the way that it was completely unfair and unjust. And Oppenheimer is a very morally ambiguous kind of character.
Hmm.
Um, but I always am drawn to people like that because I'm like, at least it's honest and it's not this, oh, perfect, whatever. He's a piece of shit, but he had some redeeming qualities. He did, I think, genuinely loved his country very much,
Hmm.
and I think was very passionate, clearly about people because he felt a tremendous amount of guilt afterwards.
Hmm. He
Um,
did. he wanted to do the right thing, and he did try to so the Japanese scientists see the bomb and then
Hmm.
tell the country to stop. He didn't mean for people to get killed.
Yeah.
He thought he would bring peace by doing this, and just everyone would be peaceful because they know with one push of a button, everyone could just die.
Hmm.
And there's another great moment where they didn't know if it would cause this chain reaction and just destroy the world.
That was a
And the way,
great line
yeah,
that he when he said that when they're
and the way
talking
trying to figure out if that would actually happen.
like that final conversation with Einstein, like at the end there. It was
Yep.
fantastic.
Hmm.
Fantastic. I
Yeah.
man, I'm really excited to rewatch this thing, man. I just
Hmm.
keep thinking about it. I'm like, fuck, I gotta get in there. I gotta
Hmm.
rewatch this thing ASAP.
Yeah. What about the Trinity scene? How was that for
Man,
you?
that was something else, and it's crazy because I didn't think about it, but you notice it because Nolan sets it up in a very interesting way when they show all the smaller explosive tests prior. You
Hmm.
notice the sound is off a little bit. I never put two and two together that the sound would then hit you way later in
Hmm.
a way. And he kind of hints at that two or three times prior with these ones where it's like be like and then it'd be like a few seconds later.
Yep.
So the whole time when that bomb goes off, there is so much suspense and so much tension because you are just waiting for the sound to come.
Hmm.
Like you are just bracing for it. And when it finally does, it just smacks you over the face.
Hmm.
And was very, how was your screen super loud? A lot of people were like, this is as loud as a concert. I was like, I didn't think it was that loud, but it was pretty loud, but I didn't think it was crazy or anything.
Well, after Tenet, which was a horrible theater experience, because Tenet was way too loud.
Tenet was
Tenet
loud.
was
Do
but he
we
did
do
it
we
on
agree
purpose.
that Tenet might be the bottom of Nolan's filmography?
100%. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to whoever likes this film. I love you. I just don't like that film because it was genuinely I wanted to walk out of my screening when I watched
Yeah.
it, which is very
And
harsh,
I
but
love
I
love Chris Nolan. It's no bearing on him as a director either at all. But I fucking hate that movie.
same and was I was this close because my friends were like, no, I wanted to walk out. My friends were like, sit down,
Hmm.
watch it, but it was too loud.
Yeah, and it was super loud. Also, like I saw it twice in theaters. Like within 2 days, I went back again because I'm like, I don't understand a goddamn thing that just happened. Like I don't understand at all.
Yeah,
And
that's
then I
what I
went
didn't
back and I was like, I
like. Mhm.
still don't even under like what is this?
That's what I didn't like about because the sound was this loud on purpose where you couldn't even hear some of the dialogue because of the music and the action. And
Yes.
he did that on purpose. You're not
Yeah.
supposed to hear everything, but I don't like that because you you have information that you purposely don't want your audience to hear, so you can tell them later, and then they
Hmm.
feel smart, like, oh, now I get it. But I
Yeah,
think that
it's a kind of a cheap hack.
it is because you also don't believe in your audience to figure it out themselves, and I
Yeah,
just don't like that. Great film technically, but just yeah.
I agree. I agree.
But
Um,
Oppenheimer
but without
wasn't.
that, we wouldn't have gotten Robert Pattinson handing him a book on Oppenheimer as a gift.
Yep. So this film is tied to Tenet.
So thank you, Tenet. Thank you for
Hmm.
existing and for
Yeah,
casting Robert Pattinson.
the goat. But yeah, it
Um,
wasn't
but yeah,
that loud. Not as
yeah,
loud
what
as Tenet.
what about for you for that scene? Also, I love that Josh Peck was the one who actually pressed the button and
Mhm.
handed over the keys. That was
Yep.
funny.
Yeah, that was funny. It was so beforehand, a lot of people and even Nolan talked about that scene and they talked about how mind blowing it is and he wanted people to actually feel the bomb.
Yeah.
I was a little bit disappointed, but only because people were hyping that scene up way too much.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting this because they showed it beforehand. Like even I think the film opens with these scenes of this very zoomed in things happening with the bomb and
Yeah.
the fire and the loud noises. And I expected more of that during the bomb scene, but I'm glad it's not. I'm glad it was the way it was. I just thought when I watched it, I expected more.
I did
But once,
too. Yeah, a little bit.
but once again, my fault, not the cinema, not the film's fault.
Yeah.
Um, but in hindsight, thinking back, that scene was just such a well crafted scene because, like you said, you're just waiting and waiting. Like, when is there going to be sound? I thought it might just be silent, but then it hits you and it really hits you.
It hits you hard.
Hmm.
And it just Nolan really is just a master at suspense. Like he
Hmm.
really is just so good at that. Dunkirk being probably the best example of that.
Hmm.
Maybe on rewatches you can agree, but
Hmm.
it was a really great scene. But I feel the same way where I expected it to just be this cacophony, a tidal wave of sound just blasting me and just I expected that.
Yep.
But like you said, I'm glad it wasn't. But I'm just like,
Hmm.
that's just what I expected. So when I got something different, I was like, oh, where, But this is the thing with we talk about it endlessly about people hyping shit up and it never living up to whatever your expectations are when people hype
Hmm.
things up.
And that's why both these films, I think, will just keep on getting better on rewatch. Because then you know what
100%.
you're getting into and you can appreciate the scenes more because you're not asking, oh, what happens next? Oh, is this gonna be that? You know,
Yes,
and you can just enjoy it.
100%. And
Mhm.
and good for like it was unexpected, but in a good way. Like this will age a lot better than something that's just like, you know what I
Yep.
mean? I mean for whatever, but
Mhm.
amazing. But then moving on to part three,
Mhm.
hour three, after the test, you see that it then gets used in Japan
Mhm.
for Hiroshima or Hiroshima, however you choose to pronounce that.
Mhm.
Um, and it's interesting that you don't actually see it. You don't see it hit Hiroshima. You don't see it hit Nagasaki. You
Mhm.
just kind of hear about it. And then the whole last hour is him dealing with that, and also him in the middle of this trial that
Mhm.
Strauss has put him into. Um, Strauss being the Robert Downey Jr. character.
Mhm.
And
So that's
I thought that was a nice addition that it was, let's see what all happens after this. How did this affect him?
mhm.
As opposed to it ending right when I expected the movie to end with the bomb, and I thought the last words of the movie were going to be like, I've become death, destroyer of worlds. I thought that was going to be the end of the film.
Mhm. Same. And I think the last act, last third of the film, it drags a little bit.
Hmm.
I think it could have been a bit shorter, to be honest.
The last like
That's
hour.
Yeah, because that was very long. But only in the middle part, because then in the end it picks up again and it gets
Yeah.
really crazy. And there are a lot of great scenes, especially the one where there are these people in that, I don't know what it was, but they're just clapping and stomping with their feet. And we
Uh,
saw that prior, like there was a scene early on where
yeah,
we
yeah,
saw
yeah, yeah.
thing, and then you see, oh, that's when he announces whatever two of those other scientists or whatever they were. And that scene was crazy.
It
When
was the
he,
way that that was cut, the sound, it was unbelievable.
dude, it's one of Nolan's best scenes he's ever made.
Yes, I
The
agree.
way, like you said, behind him, the walls, they're shaking. People are just stomping. The sound is so loud. He starts walking and steps on one of the carcasses of like one of the dead
Yes.
person, and it was unreal.
And then the only sound you hear is just like the little creaks of someone's foot or him like moving the podium or like a seat or like it was like or just like his mouth like clearing like the spit in his mouth like it was oh wow that was like a very intense experience.
Mm-hmm. And someone pointed out that I don't know if you saw that they have the American flags.
I saw that, which
And it
I don't know
has
how anyone actually caught that while watching because it was so quick.
How do
I'm
you
like, how
go to
did
the
you counted
cinema?
that? You know, you
Yeah.
only missed 2 stars. How? But I will say though, kind of
Mhm.
surprised Nolan didn't catch on to that though. I expected
He's
him to.
he's probably punching himself right now because
He's
he's
probably
one of the
pissed.
guys. He makes sure that every
He's like
detail is
Kubrick in
correct.
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even with Dunkirk, the watches he used, the way the watch Tom Hardy's character has, it's accurate. That's the watch they used,
Yeah.
and so he's a very detail specific person.
Yes.
So he's probably
Very
mad. Like,
detail oriented.
how does one get out of Oppenheimer and he noticed that? I'm not sure, but yeah.
I think it's just crazy that someone even noticed that in a
Mhm.
theater. It's not like they went home, paused, and like, oh, let me see. How did you catch that in theaters? And then be like, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Maybe it wasn't a trailer or a clip that came out,
Maybe.
but still, that's just a safety's hand as well. Mm.
Yeah. Very strange. Yeah.
Mm.
But I did love that part, and I want to do more research because the whole Strauss thing. I didn't know as much about like why he was trying to fuck him over so badly.
Mm.
Like those are things I'm definitely gonna be interested in reading about and checking out. But I do agree, Robert Downey Jr. was amazing, and I honestly expected him to be in more of the movie than he was. It's funny, like he really wasn't in it that much, but his presence is so it just looms over the whole movie.
Okay, so we are re-recording this part because when we recorded it initially we had a little audio issue, so the last 15 minutes, well, my track is just gone. So listening back, it just sounds like it really did, like, for this podcast we had a M. Night Shyamalan kind of plot because listening back to it, it sounds like you're just insane and you just talk to yourself.
Yeah, for
You
like
just
16
made this,
minutes.
yeah, you just made this podcast in your head and I don't even exist. So it was just lost, and that's why the episode didn't come out sooner. So we have to re-record the last 15 minutes
Yes.
of the plot.
But luckily people are still talking about it. People are still talking about Barbie, talking about Oppenheimer, so we're not too far removed.
That's true.
Um, but I think where we last left off though was talking about Robert Downey Jr.'s character of Strauss. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's the last thing we talked about.
Yeah, and I think we were kind of just discussing sort of um, how good really the makeup and design was
Mhm.
in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, he looked
Um,
really old.
he looked really like good, and I think like we were saying. Well, I don't know if anyone else heard, but I was talking to a friend of mine who literally afterwards texted me and was like, "That was Robert Downey Jr." I was
Hmm.
like, "Yes, of course it was." Yeah, but he was completely unrecognizable
Hmm.
in the film. They did a fantastic job. I'm curious to know. I didn't even look up who the who did the
Makeup
makeup
artist.
on the film. Yeah.
And it was just makeup. There was no CGI making him older. It was makeup only. Even for Oppenheimer and Benny Safdie and that scene in the end, they looked super old and looked realistic. Like that actually looked like Killian Murphy as an old person.
Yeah, it was really fantastic. And let's see, I'm seeing just a name of a costume designer and Ellen. God, there are only so many ads whenever you pull up any of these websites. Some lady named Ellen something. Shout out
Mm.
to her; she did a very good job.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, everyone looked so good in that film, and it's always cool seeing the production. So the production designer, I was actually watching. Those like I forget what it's called, but it's a French like video club, and they'll go on YouTube and like actors or filmmakers will go through sort of like a Criterion Closet sort of thing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure actually. I don't think I've
There's
seen
I
this.
yeah I forget what it's called, but um, there was an episode that came out recently, and I'll send you a link
Hmm.
afterwards,
Please do.
where what's that?
I said please do. I want to see
Yeah,
it.
I will. With Cillian Murphy and Christopher Nolan, they go through, and like I said, it's kind of like it's called Konbini Video
Okay.
Club, Konbini, and they go through and they talk about different movies, and like I said, it's very much like a Criterion Closet sort of thing.
Hmm.
And There Will Be Blood came up, and they were saying that the production designer was the set dresser who worked under Jack Fisk, the production designer of There Will Be Blood. So they were able to come in for Oppenheimer and create these really insane period piece for like a very decent lower sort of budget. Obviously, this movie had a huge budget, but allocating lesser funds to that, they were able to have someone who did a really good job. Because I thought that just the periodness of it with the production design in Oppenheimer is really amazing. And hearing that it's the person who worked on There Will Be Blood makes so much sense because I think from production design you can probably see a lot of parallels between the two.
It was really spectacular just seeing that, and it fit really well. So the whole crew did a phenomenal job on this.
Mm-hmm. They really did. Um, Another thing with this movie was old Florence Pugh,
Mhm.
which I was shooting a music video last week, and I was working with someone on the crew, and we were talking about it, and he hadn't seen Oppenheimer yet, and it was actually the day after that we had recorded the first half of this episode, and we're talking, and the first thing he goes, yeah, so I heard, Florence Pugh, you see some knockers in that in the movie, and I was like, damn, I don't know how you heard that, but turns out that they edited it quite a bit in some other territories.
Yep, I believe it was India
Yeah,
where they completely like they changed it. They made it so she wore a dress in a scene where she was completely nude, which is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And shout out to our boy at Fangram
Yep.
on Instagram. He's the one who I think brought that to our attention. He lives in India and was and posted a still, and it looks pretty good. I can't lie, like the CGI looks pretty good, but the fact that they actually had a CGI like a full dress on this woman while she sat there is pretty insane. But I guess it makes sense. I think just the censors there are a little bit more strict. Yeah.
Mhm. And India is a big market for Nolan movies. I mean,
Oh
they're
yeah.
crazy after him. His movies do really well over there. He has a lot of
Yeah.
fans, so it makes sense that they wouldn't just want this film to not release there. So they probably had a plan beforehand to edit that. I mean, that must have taken a while because it
One
was
hundred
done really
percent.
well.
And it looked
So
really good. And I was speaking of other like territories. I was reading something. Another friend sent something to me yesterday
mhm.
that they're saying Oppenheimer. And let me know if you have any insight on this. I don't know. Oppenheimer might not get a Japanese release. Have you heard anything about this?
I heard about that, but then I also heard they changed it so it will release, but I think it's still up in the air. I think they're deciding on it, but I'm not sure. I'm not.
Yeah, because I was doing some research and they were saying how, I guess, and I never really did research into this myself, so I don't really know, but I guess they're saying Japan usually comes at the end of a film's release cycle. Like
Yep.
that usually tends to be one of the last releases in terms of territories
Hmm.
for international stuff. Um, so I thought maybe at first, like, oh, it's just that, like, yeah, they just get it later, so that's why it's not out. But then on some more digging, I guess it's really a thing where they're actually like considering maybe not putting it out, which would be kind of insane um, to not do that. But
Yep.
I was curious to know if you heard any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would have maybe understood it if we actually saw the bombings drop.
Yeah,
Because this film, it's not really American propaganda. I would understand it if they saw it as that, but it's about this man who I can see
yeah,
why they're hesitant to show it, but in the end, it's history. And I mean, Oppenheimer didn't. He was the man who like made it, but he wasn't the man responsible for dropping the bomb. So
exactly.
I'm a bit. I understand where they're coming from, but it'll be interesting to see what they decide on because
Yeah,
I can see why they would, but in the end, I'm not for banning movies and censorship. So
I'm not. I'm not either. Especially it especially for something that is just a historical thing. It's like this is something that happened. We can't really escape it or try to throw it underneath some rug and just hide it or throw it into a closet and
and we
forget it. Like
shouldn't.
this happened. No, you shouldn't. And it's sure it's a nasty thing, and there's a lot of people who are at fault too. And And obviously in America, there's obviously a hugely different view on that as well, especially with it somewhat being of a retaliation of something that was done horribly to us by them too. So it's a very three-dimensional thing that is tough. But yeah, banning books, banning movies, it's all pretty lame in my opinion. But I hope they get to see the film, and I hope that when they do, they see that it's not. It'd be different if it was like this whole thing, like, yeah, we did it, we bombed those freaking Japanese, and it's like, we don't even see it. Like, it's not even.
And we see Oppenheimer react to it, and he's just devastated when he hears the
Yeah,
news, and he even sees like a dead person on the ground, stepping
yeah,
on it, and stepping on
yeah.
the black, whatever that is, like the
The
encasement
charred,
of, yeah,
yeah, that charred body of whatever that was.
which is
Um,
really really crazy, and you see the effect it has on them. So I
yeah,
think they should just let everyone decide for themselves if they want to see it. I would understand if someone says, "Hey, I can't watch that," maybe
it's too
there are,
tough, or
yeah,
it hits too close to home.
exactly. So I think you should just let everyone decide for themselves.
100%.
But
And
that's how it is.
yeah, and it's funny how you said, that it's not about that either, because at least here in the States, there are some people in the media who are very upset with the movie because it doesn't portray it. So
Yep.
it's like, oh, we're sympathizing with what we did to them. It's like, well, that's just not what the movie's about. Like,
Mm,
that's just not. It's about Oppenheimer. It's not about Hiroshima. It's not about Nagasaki. It's not.
mm,
You know what I mean? Um, so you can't really appease anybody. The people will get mad
that's
if you
true.
show it. They'll get mad if you don't show it. So you can never win. That's the ultimate learning lesson, I think, from this.
That's true. And I mean, India found a way to not ban it, but work around it. And we
Yeah,
even last time we asked ourselves, how did they edit the scene where we see them having sex during the trial,
yeah,
which we then
yeah.
asked Fangram, but he didn't respond in time. So it's kind of good that this releases after because he told me they just zoom in on Florence Pugh's face, so we don't see anything around it.
That's something else.
Hmm. What do you think about
It's
censorship like that in general?
I'm completely against any kind of censorship of any kind.
Mm,
Like, even if someone wants to make like an X movie, like, I go do it again. Like you said, it's like we're not forcing anyone to watch it, but I'm not going to force people to not watch it. If you want to, go see it,
mm,
But if you don't want to, then that's fine. Just don't go. Just don't go. Literally, turn your eyes away. Close your eyes. It's
yep.
it's. I don't know if this even makes sense, but this just popped in my head. Do you remember that tweet that Tyler the Creator made years ago that went viral, where he just tweets something? He's like, how the hell is cyberbullying a real thing? He's like, bruh, just close your computer. Like, just close your eyes. Like,
I
turn
remember that.
away.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's the same thing. It's like, if you don't want to watch the movie, like, literally don't buy a ticket. Like, don't go into the theater. Just go home or go watch another movie.
Mhm.
Simple as
Or
that.
at least inform yourselves beforehand, because I can see why people maybe thought it wouldn't include something like that and then drag their
Hmm.
kids to see Oppenheimer. I don't know why you would, but you can inform yourselves beforehand to see what it's about.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's
I
it's
don't
like with
think.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you're assuming the risk anytime you go into a movie. You never know what to expect. That's what makes going into a movie so awesome.
Mhm.
Because it is this completely new thing and you have no idea what's going to happen. You're just going to experience it. So
Mhm.
that's the risk that you assume when you buy a ticket to a movie or you rent it or you stream it on Netflix or Max or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't think art should be censored. I mean, of course, there's art that is, in my eyes, not art and really gruesome, and of course, we shouldn't show people getting killed and things like that, like actually,
Yeah,
or other things. But this is, I mean, it's a movie where people are naked and having sex and talking and things like that happen. So I don't think if the director wants this to be seen, then it should be in the movie, and you shouldn't
for
alter with
sure.
his vision, especially someone like Nolan. He's not like someone like Lars von Trier or something. Um, he just makes movies.
Provocateur.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's a
I guess that's the thing. You have to find a place to draw the line, I guess, right?
yeah.
In terms of what would be allowed, because there are films where it is like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think as well, with like the simulated sex scenes or
Mhm.
real sex scenes, and we mentioned like Sean Baker's film Starlet,
Yep.
where it is a real sex scene, not with the real actors, but it's cut in of real people having sex. And I think
Mhm.
you had mentioned it with Lars von Trier doing something similar as well, maybe. Um, but there are things like that where it's like some people may be very offended and some might not be. And then obviously some people are very offended by even fake sex
Yeah.
on a film, like with Florence Pugh and Cillian Murphy.
Mm. But
But
as
just
long
to
as it's
find a place to
consensual
draw
and
line.
it's not crossing
I
that
think
certain line,
I
don't
think you
worry.
got to just draw the line,
Yep.
like when it becomes like an illegal thing that you're showing. Like you said with
Exactly.
murder, like if it's
Hmm.
like snuff where you're murdering someone, then of course that is like an illegal thing. Don't show that.
Hmm.
But if
Or
it's two people
animals,
having sex,
kill
exactly,
animals.
exactly.
Yep.
But if it's just two people having sex, that is not. It's not illegal to have sex.
Mm.
Like it's just that it's a taboo thing for some people, and for some people it doesn't. Who cares? We've all
Mm.
seen it, I'm sure. So, but yeah, it's interesting. But I'm glad at least India was at least able to find some type of way to do it, and I
Mm.
don't think it takes away too much from the film. The fact that they don't get to see, it's more so just like, damn, y'all missed out. That sucks.
Mm. But like you said, I agree. It doesn't take away from the film. The film is still complete. They didn't cut out crucial scenes. Because the conversation between them is kind of crucial, and they found a way to
hmm
include it, but just to cover things
Yeah,
up. So I'm
I,
just
I
glad,
guess.
because we have a lot of friends in India, and a lot of my people who follow my page are from India. I'm just
hmm
glad they got to see the movie and it wasn't just flat out banned.
No, for sure. And I think now that I think, I mean, there is a certain like unsettling feeling though. Wouldn't you
Mhm.
agree with that scene? Because actually seeing it, it kind of makes it very uncomfortable,
Mhm.
and you
Oh,
feel a
yeah.
little bit more of that feeling. So I guess there maybe is a tiny little bit that is missing, but all in all, at least they didn't cut out the scene. At least
Mhm.
they just censored a little, but it would have been worse if they cut it out entirely because those are both
Yeah.
very powerful moments in the
Mhm.
movie.
That's true. That's true.
But
But
yeah, do you have any final thoughts on Oppenheimer or I guess Barbie, but Oppenheimer specifically?
yeah, I remember when we recorded last time, you asked and then immediately regretted which one we liked more,
Mm-hmm.
which we might not even do. Or, I mean, now that more time has passed, do you have one?
A favorite between the two?
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
should
I
we?
do. I do have one that I do. I kind of look at them like that. I think was a better experience, and I
Mhm.
enjoyed it more. What about you?
I do as well. Should we just
Okay.
tell us? Let's just.
Okay. For me, it's Oppenheimer.
Mhm. Well, for me, it's Barbie. Like I said last
Okay.
time,
Yeah.
both great, incredible films, and just such a benchmark for Hollywood right now and just movies, because like you mentioned, so many people are going to see both, and it's not Barbie or Oppenheimer, it's Barbie and Oppenheimer, and that's just
Together.
it's such a great thing to see just movie fans coming together and enjoy two amazing films.
And the fact that both films could not be more polar opposite from each other
Hmm. Yep.
is really exciting.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of people were saying like these could be two films that will change Hollywood all over. And while I don't know that I fully agree that that will be the case,
Hmm.
um, because and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this actually, because I had this debate with some friends as well where they're saying that these are two like big films that um, aren't superhero films, essentially was their point. And
Hmm.
that because they're going to do so well, it will change Hollywood back over to what it was before,
Hmm.
with like more original stuff. But me playing devil's advocate, I came at it that I don't think it will, because ultimately at the end of the day, they still kind of are the same thing in that they are using existing people or existing IP. It's original to stories, but it's not totally original. They are
Hmm.
still banking on Barbie having 50, however many years, it being in our social consciousness to sell. They have J. Robert Oppenheimer, someone who is taught in every school in most of the world, to sell it through as well. So while I think it's a step in the right direction that there are these things that are a little bit more unique, I still think we need some films that are 100% totally not reliant on an existing IP or existing person or event in history to really make that change. But I'm curious to know your thoughts on that, or if you've thought about it, or if you agree with me or disagree, or whatever. Just because I was just talking about it recently.
Hmm. Well, I agree. I can see both sides because you can tell that there's a little bit of a superhero fatigue, not just superheroes,
Yeah.
but like franchises and sequels in general. And I
Yeah.
think we might see more original films in the sense that they're standalone films. But on the other side, we're seeing it right now with Mattel. They're
Mm-hmm.
getting like the wrong, should I say, like the wrong ideas seeing Barbie's success because now they're like, oh, we're making a Hot Wheels movie, we're making an Uno film, we're making this and that, and a Polly Pocket film, which is just announced. So I
Are you being
think
serious?
studios, yeah, it was just announced. Like, who's the actress? Phil Collins's daughter. What's her
Lily, is
name?
that her name? Lily
Lily
Collins?
Collins. She's gonna be starring in a Polly Pocket film, which is probably is gonna be similar to Barbie. People are saying.
Wow. Oh, it's directed by Lena Dunham. Lucky us. Huh.
I'm not familiar with her work.
Yeah, she's kind of cringe. But anyway, that's
So I
interesting. Were the
think
Hot Wheels ones real and Uno, or were you kidding about those?
I'm not kidding. Hot Wheels is directed by J.J. Abrams, and he said it'll be gritty and realistic. And
There.
the
Hold on.
yeah.
No, continue with Uno. That's where my mind is really. They're making an Uno movie.
Well, do you want to know who's attached to this?
Yes, I want to know everything about it.
It'll be a. It's described as a Uno heist film, and Lil Yachty,
Little Yachty.
he's attached to it. So I'm I'm kind of interested to be completely honest because it sounds so crazy.
They're
You haven't
making
you haven't
what?
heard
This is
about this?
I have not heard about this at all.
Yeah, it'd be a heist film. I don't know how you make a heist film based on the Uno card game, but Lil Yachty is making that.
I'm literally blown away right now.
Hmm.
Uh, oh, wow. I
Hmm.
can't believe they're making a film about a card game. That's
Hmm.
crazy.
Not even like
That's literally insane. Anyway,
complicated
yeah.
card game. It's just Uno, which is super simple, but we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Little Yachty is helping produce it.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool.
It sounds
It's
interesting.
okay. Yeah, Uno. This is the headline I'm reading on Complex. Lil Yachty produced Uno heist movie set in Atlanta hip hop scene.
Hmm.
Oh, moving in a new direction.
I'm excited. I mean, it sounds like something fresh, so I'm all for original ideas.
I I am too. That's interesting. That's interesting. We'll see how that pans out when that comes out. Um, yeah, that's wow. I'm literally I'm like at a loss for words right now. I can't believe they're making a movie about Uno.
Like
That's
I said, I
crazy.
think.
I want to direct a Go Fish movie.
Mhm. Please do. That'd be perfect. I think that could actually work. I'm not even joking.
It probably would. I probably should have kept that to myself off
Mhm.
pod.
Yeah, but like I said, I think
uh,
studios will both see a like something good out of it and just oh more money. And they're
yeah,
probably
and
gonna announce a Barbie sequel.
that'd be kind of crazy. One thing I will say though, of something that is totally original, and let me know if you agree with this. I feel like in the last handful of years, the idea of like a studio comedy movie has
Hmm.
disappeared. I feel like comedy movies are not coming out from studios anymore since like the era of like 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Hangover movies,
Yep.
Horrible Bosses, like that whole era,
Hmm.
Get Him to the Greek, all those sorts of movies, they stopped happening. But I noticed when I was scrolling through, there's that new Jennifer Lawrence movie that's out, and I think it's called No Hard Feelings. Are you
Yep,
familiar with it?
I am.
And
Haven't
I
seen it yet, but I've heard of it.
neither have I. And I've heard that it did pretty well, and that the reviews are actually pretty good as
Hmm.
well.
I know
And I think
someone who saw it. They said it was great, so I'm excited to
that's what
watch
I've
it.
heard too. I'm curious to check it out, and I kind of got to think for her too. I'm interested in seeing it, but I
Hmm.
think a movie like that, smaller obviously than Barbie and Oppenheimer, might even be a bigger nod to, or a bigger, let me think of a way to word this, might be a better guiding point of Hollywood maybe
Hmm.
changing, because that is something that's completely original and a comedy, something that's not really being made by studios anymore because you can't really sell that as well. But the fact that it's done decently well, and I'll double check that. But
Hmm.
but I was pretty surprised by like the reviews were pretty damn good on it.
Hmm. I'm excited to check it out. And like you said, those studio comedies kind of disappeared for a while. I mean, they were
Yeah,
huge in like the early 2000s.
yeah, all the way up until probably the early 2010s maybe.
Hmm. But they're coming back, and I think it was Francis Ford Coppola who recently made a comment. He said, "We're about to cross a new golden age of Hollywood," he said, with like the recent things that are coming out, even with Dune, for example. I mean, Dune is such a
Mm-hmm.
big triumph for like a blockbuster Hollywood film, and it cost, I think, like only 150 million, which
Only.
compared to other things that other studios, I'm not going to say any names, have been putting out
Yeah.
recently, even some shows that have a
Yeah.
higher budget that l- don't look like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be interesting to see. And I think that should be like a benchmark to compare it to Dune. Someone said it, I saw it online, to that they should compare modern blockbusters to Dune in terms of budget because of how well Dune was executed. And even Oppenheimer didn't cost as much as one might think, and most of the budget went to the incredible cast.
Yeah. Cost about 100 mil. That's even
Hmm.
less than Dune, with a lot more moving pieces in Oppenheimer. I
Hmm.
personally think.
Hmm.
Although I guess Dune is a double part thing, but that was only for part one, right? 150 million or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm looking at No Hard Feelings now, and this is kind of a shock too. It was made for over $45 million. That's a lot of money for a comedy.
Whoa.
That's a lot.
Well, they have
But it
Jennifer Lawrence, so
and I agree, but still, like
still,
that,
yeah.
I don't know any of the other. The only other big name is Matthew Broderick, and it's not like he's really in the
Hmm.
biggest selling person in Hollywood
Yeah.
anymore. But it made over $85 million. So I can imagine they probably could have made that film for probably like a quarter of that, if not more. Again, I
Yeah.
haven't seen it, so I don't know the set pieces, but from what I gathered from the trailers, it didn't seem like there was a lot of major set pieces. It seemed just like
Yeah.
a funny comedy that was really being driven by the writing, by the script, you know?
Mhm. Well, when we both see it, we can talk about it again and even maybe talk about the
Yeah.
budget again. Maybe it makes more sense after seeing it. Maybe someone
I
who
might.
has seen it can
Hmm.
tell us, but
Yeah, I might check it out this week because I think it's about to make its way out of theaters.
yeah.
I think it's kind of coming down because I was just looking it up now to see the budget, and it's starting to be those show times where it's only like once or twice a day, and it's always at like 9:30 at night or like ten
Mm.
fifteen at night. You know?
Slowly moving out.
Exactly. So there's probably only another week there, but maybe if I'm up late enough this week, I'll go check out one of those.
Oh, hell yeah.
Um,
Let us know.
but we'll see. I mean, time will tell, and it's an
Mhm.
exciting. It's nonetheless, this is a very exciting time to be a part of it,
Yeah.
and to see what comes of this,
Mhm.
for the better or for the worse. But I think that we'll probably get some really cool stuff out of it. Although I still believe that it's not enough to fully change Hollywood to where I
Yeah.
think it should be, where it once was. But
Mhm.
it's certainly a step in the right direction. But I know we already talked about Barbie, I believe, on a scale of however, one
Yep.
to 10. Of what did we do? Horses.
I think
But on a
horses, yeah.
scale of 1 to 10 atomic bombs,
Mhm.
um, how many, how much are you literally Oppenheimer? Or is
0.
Oppenheimer literally you? Yeah.
A 0, and I think you said it last time as well.
Yeah. He's an
Mhm.
absolute menace.
He is a menace to
in
society.
every sense of the word.
And we're not as smart as him. I think you said that last time.
We're not as smart as him, but yet also somehow smarter than him in other regards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, that's there. There it is.
Mhm.
Were there any other films that when you were watching Oppenheimer, you thought maybe Oppenheimer himself might enjoy
Mhm.
or like?
So we talked about, well, I mentioned the movie The Imitation Game, starring Benedict
Mm-hmm.
Cumberbatch, which I think pairs well with this one, which is more about math, but still a period piece about World War and things like that. And then there was this film that came out recently, a couple of years ago, the Marie Curie film. I forgot what it was called. I think it's just called Radioactive,
Okay.
and which I mentioned starring. I forgot again. Let me see. It stars. Yeah, Rosamund Pike as Marie Curie, and Anya Taylor-Joy is in it as well.
And
Which
what's the movie
wasn't.
called?
It's called Radioactive. It's a Marie Curie
Okay.
biopic, which wasn't well received. I heard. I haven't seen it myself, but I think Oppenheimer might have liked that film.
That's funny. I never even heard about this movie ever coming out.
hmm It came out, I think,
Interesting.
right before COVID or during COVID, around that time.
July of 2020, so right in the thick of it.
Yeah, I think that's why it kind of went down. And another one was The Theory of Everything, that Stephen Hawking film that could
Mm-hmm.
pair very well with this one. But yeah, those are the ones I noticed. Did you have any?
Any movies? Well, and I'm trying to think what I was saying, what I said last time. I think Doctor Strangelove
Yeah.
is a major one that
Mhm.
he would probably enjoy. It's a movie that is an all time classic now, and at this point always has been kind of. But one of my favorite Kubrick movies, and is really dives into the absurdity of the atom bomb and nuclear warfare and the fact that human beings are behind this and it's one of the all-time great satires ever and a movie that very much fits in with this. I think huh I'm trying to think what other movies maybe he probably would have liked maybe that Chernobyl show that came out
Yeah.
which I think Stellan Skarsgård was in, if I'm not mistaken. I never saw it, but I heard it was really good.
Same here.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I
That's
think
it.
those are yeah some of the main ones that I think he would really enjoy.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, any final thoughts on either Barbie or Oppenheimer?
Well, two incredible, great films, and I'm excited for people to have seen it or to go see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very cool talking about it with you and kind of analyzing the films, both after seeing it kind of recently to now a week later, which was
Yeah,
an accident, but kind of cool that we got to, especially you, because you watched Oppenheimer the day before, so kind of
yeah,
to settle in
yeah.
more. And yeah,
Yeah, man. Well, it's thank you to everyone for listening and for sticking with us after another week. I know we kind of took a week off there, but
Mhm.
had to figure out some tech issues, but we're back and we're happy that we finally got to finish up this Barbenheimer episode for you guys. And curious to know what you guys think, which one you guys prefer. Um,
Let us know.
I was thinking maybe we should put together, an IG page or something as well. So if we wanted to get some people in the comments or some
Mhm.
things that way, maybe we can set something up, and perhaps that will be coming shortly, maybe. Um, but yeah, that's I think that's a wrap on Barbenheimer. What do you say? Do you know?
That's a wrap, and we have a little announcement for the podcast moving forward. Which do you want to explain to the audience what we're gonna do?
Sure thing. Yeah, we so in keeping with the literally me mantra that we've set for ourselves, we've decided we're going to take a little pivot in the direction of the podcast and try something new out that we think will be really cool. Um, but in service of our literally me Lord, Mr. Ryan Gosling, we're going to be moving for the rest of the podcast. We're going to be moving through his filmography, through all of his major films or all the films, and and talking a little bit about the movie, but really almost emphasizing the literally me sections that we've been doing on the pod so far. So when we go through each Ryan Gosling film, for instance, we're going to be going in reverse order now. So the next episode you hear from us will be from The Gray Man, the film he did just before Barbie. And pretty much what we'll do is we'll talk about The Gray Man for just a little bit. And then after that, me and Dino will each come back with just a handful of films that we think that Ryan Gosling character would think, hey, those characters are literally me. And we're really going to spend more time on the pod just kind of talking about various movies and suggesting movies to each other and discussing movies that maybe we just discovered or movies we both love or whatever. But really, it's going to be more about talking about different movies, all within the scope of our homie Ryan Gosling and all of his literally me characters up into this point. And I'm really excited to see how it goes. I don't know about you.
Same here. I'm super excited. I mean, I like the movie discussion we had and like having one central movie for each episode, but I'm very excited to do this because that way we have like a whole plethora of films we can discuss and share with each other and to the audience because it's always great to get recommendations and if you like one
Yeah.
film or one character to get more films in that like there are similar that you might like as well and it just opens up like discussion to so many more things and I'm super
hmm
excited for this and of course Ryan Gosling he's the goat so it'll be cool to visit his films and his characters.
Yeah. And I think both of us have seen probably the majority of his movies, but I don't think either of us have seen all of them.
No.
So it'll be cool. And even Gray Man, a film that I've not seen
Hmm.
up until this past week, I did already check it out.
Hmm.
Won't say anything more. That you guys will have to wait for the next episode.
Yep, we'll have to wait.
But it's cool. We finally get to complete the filmography for our homie Ryan Gosling, and maybe by the time that we finish that up, maybe you'll have a new movie out, and we'll see how it goes.
Hmm. Well,
But
that's mhm.
I believe that's it. And if you guys want to watch along with us, check out The Gray Man. I believe that was a Netflix exclusive.
Yep.
So if you got Netflix, throw that thing on, get ready for next week's, and we'll talk Gray Man, and you'll walk away with who knows, maybe 6, 8, 10 new movie recommendations from it as well. So really getting to talk about cool movies while also recommending a bunch of movies and spreading the good word.
Hell yeah. Super excited. And it will require a little bit more research, so we might not pump out episodes every week, so we might switch
Might
to
do an
every other
every
week.
other week. Yep.
Yeah, something like that. But we'll still be here and we'll discuss great films and have great recommendations for you guys. So I'm
And I
excited.
assure you that that extra week wait will be
Mhm.
well worth it because you will come out with a lot of movies to check out and watch after that, and you'll need 2 weeks to go through all of them. I assure
Yep.
you. So don't worry, we'll be doing our homework. We're not going to be diddly daddling and lollygagging around. We're going to be doing our homework and making sure we give you guys a whole bunch of movies to follow up on.
Yeah, we'll do research. We'll grind that shit and we're gonna give you amazing films.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
Me as well. Do you have any final thoughts?
Uh, I don't think so. I think I've said all there is to be said.
Mhm. Well, one more thing. If you're listening to this, whatever you're going through, I said last time, you can do this and you are enough. So go
That's
out there and
on God.
hell yeah, go out
Yes,
there and
sir.
kill it. It was super nice talking to you. And,
As always.
this like always talking to like a big brother and these movie discussions, they really like my highlight. And so
Me too.
thank you for doing this with me and we'll do
Hey,
more.
I feel the same way, if not more. I love getting to to talk about movies with someone who also loves movies as much as I do. So it's cool to do this every week and or every other week moving forward now. But that's another thing. Our discussions will be even longer, so it'll be even better because we'll get to be talking about like 10 freaking movies now. So guys, buckle in for some longer episodes here, for some road trips, for some long work days. We got you covered. Don't worry.
That content is coming.
It's coming. It's coming. So stay on the lookout. And like I said, maybe we'll put together an Instagram page or something as well, and get some more interaction there, and talk to you guys on there. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on the pods.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
See ya.